Josh Weissman has completely changed the restaurant industry by taking everything they do and then making it better and cheaper.
Today we're getting an inside look on the secrets of the restaurant industry.
They definitely do illegal shit in that world.
Okay. How you're able to make the best meals on a budget and how he was able to turn his passion for cooking into a multi-million-dollar business. But first, we gotta thank our sponsor, Aura. As you might have noticed, a lot of our guests have always talked about the importance of getting a good night of sleep, and I always thought that I was sleeping just fine until Aura sent me their sleep tracking ring, and then I realized how bad of a sleeper I guess I am and how many times I'm waking up in the middle of the night. So being able to track my sleep has been incredibly important, and now I know exactly how much sleep I need, when I'm most likely to wake up, and how I could optimize that just to feel better during the day.
See, I always knew I was a bad sleeper, but finally I can have a log of when I wake up throughout the night and how I can improve on my sleep. And since I've got the Aura ring and been able to track these stats, I've been able to drastically improve my sleep. There are hundreds of studies out there that directly correlate good sleep with productivity. But good sleep is a lot more complicated than the hours from when you lay down until the time you wake up.
Sleep is broken down into 4 different stages, and Aura gives you a detailed breakdown of how much each stage you're getting and what you could do to improve. They also track your heart rate variability, and oxygen levels when you sleep.
Aura also has tons of other cool features like activity tracking, temperature variations, and more. So check out Aura with the link down below in the description. Thank you so much, Aura, for sponsoring this episode, and back to the podcast.
Enjoy.
Welcome back to the Iced Coffee Hour. I'm Joshua Weissman, and I cook food.
Welcome to the
Joshua
Iced Coffee
Weissman,
Hour.
welcome. What brings you out to Vegas?
I was doing a little cooking thing with, I don't know if you guys know Jean-Georges. He's like a juggernaut in the chef space. This guy's, I don't even know how he's managed to do what he does, but he has multiple Michelin star restaurants. He has like 50 or 60 restaurants now. I studied him a bunch when I was a kid, and they randomly reached out. I was like, hey, Jean-Georges, like, watches you want to hang out and like do some stuff. And so we came out and filmed the video. It was super fun.
Can you tell us about the video?
Yeah. So basically the concept was, can I beat a Michelin chef? So we did like chopping competitions and like a bunch of other things. And we made like a plate. I had to like come up with a dish. He got to use one of the dishes that was already at the restaurant. So I felt a little disadvantaged there, sure. But I came up with a dish and like put it together, and we went head to head, and you'll have to watch the video to see what happens.
Who judges that though?
We had a bunch of blindfolded taste testers come in and pick a dish. It was a steak dish.
So, how do you think you did going into it?
Like before I got there?
Yeah, before you got judged. Like after you made the meal.
You know, I hate to say it because everybody's usually like, God, Josh has a big ego. Well, you're right. I walked in feeling just fine. But, you know, I think that there is an element to like being successful in a scenario like that, right? In the same way with athletes too, right? I'm not saying that I'm, back to like an athlete. If I can run like 2 minutes and I'm done. But I think the mentality aspect helps me do well in scenarios like that, high pressure. But I don't know. I felt fine. I felt like I was going to do well. I didn't know if I would win or not, but I didn't really care because it's like this guy's been cooking professionally and has had his own restaurant, an entire restaurant group for like 50 years.
So how old is this guy?
He's 60.
Okay. And what does it mean, Michelin star? What is I always hear it, but I have honestly no idea what that means.
Really?
Yeah.
So it's kind of a weird, mysterious thing. So we know Michelin tires. It comes from the tire company, guys.
Does it
Real
really?
sorry. It does. It does. It's 100% the exact same company. So I will say that there's a little bit of a weird element to it, but I think it took off where Michelin started a guide where they're like, okay, we sell tires. We want to incentivize selling tires. This is my assumption in their boardroom meeting here. And they decided, okay, well, we'll make a system where we'll give a bunch of recommendations of great places to eat and bed and breakfast and whatnot for you to stop at along your trip using Michelin tires.
No.
And that was kind of the whole element of it. But it became its own thing. So this is why I still respect it to an extent. It became its own thing because people started desiring these sort of unattainable ratings where it was like 1, 2, 3 stars, right? And then it kind of fell into fine dining where it was, 1 star is just for great food. 2 stars is great food and great service. 3 stars is like everything. It's like the symphony of a restaurant being utterly perfect from bottom to the top. If someone drops a napkin, it gets picked up within a certain amount of time. If somebody the forks and knives are always placed in the right spot every single time. Did the waiter or waitress check on you? And when they checked on you, how did they check on you? And like that's just a fraction of the level of intricacy that they look for. And so it ended up becoming this really sort of difficult to acquire award, and human beings love that. So, everybody's like Oh, well, I want a Michelin star.
Yeah.
I'd love to have one as well. So, I mean, I get it.
Have you been to a 3 Michelin star restaurant?
Yes. I've been to a couple different ones. There's one, I don't know if they still have 3 stars. There's one in San Francisco called Saison. So expensive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How
I mean,
much?
Easily eat without drinks, like $750 a person. Easily.
No, $750.
I'm pretty sure. Yeah, I'm pretty sure they're the most expensive Michelin restaurant in America because I think their average tab is like $1,000 a person or something like that.
Person.
Yeah.
What do you get for $1,000?
I mean, it depends on where you go, but with Saison,
Yeah.
So I mean, you're gonna get like multiple courses, not 5 courses or 6 courses, probably closer to 12 or maybe even 15. You might be dining for 3 or 4 hours.
Are you serious?
Your ass will get sweaty. I'll tell you right now. Can I say that on this podcast?
Yeah, you can say
Sweaty. Okay, cool. Great news. So yeah, I mean, some of these restaurants actually have rest areas. So you'll go in and I love it personally. It is gaudy but it is honestly
explain
really fun.
what this is.
It's kind of like a spa. You know, you go to a spa, right? And it's kind of unnecessarily catered to you in a way where it's like they lift your arm and do everything for you. And
They lift your arm for you.
no. I'm bringing up the concept of a spa.
Imagine the server just chewing the food for you.
Nice. And then spitting in your
And then they
mouth.
baby bird it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Cool.
exactly. And then they give you like a gift card now. So the concept is like you're catered to at every whim in most scenarios. So like there are some places where you'd go and you'd eat for maybe an hour. And then they'd go, okay, cool. Now you're going to go over to the espresso bar. So they'll move you over. There's a rest area. There's some couches, like really nice modern couches. Maybe they have like something to read or whatever. They give you a small espresso and then maybe like a juice or something refreshing. Sit there for about 10 minutes. And then they'll escort you back to your table. And then your table's reset with different plates and different silverware for the next set of courses. Like it's like high fine dining.
How often do people go to a restaurant like that? Is that like a once a month sort of deal? If you have the money, or is it like once a year? That sounds exhausting to me.
Yeah.
Sounds like
I think
too
it's more
much.
of like something you go and do every once in a while. You
Okay.
know, you go karting every once in a while. You go to the fancy restaurant every once in a while.
So are most 3-star Michelin restaurants like that, where they have rest areas, or is that just a one-off?
I would say that's not most of them.
Okay.
Most of them are like, you know, they're restaurants, but they're just really high level food or really high level cuisine. There's usually other elements to it though. I mean, another comparison I could make is, I'm trying to remember the name of it, 11 Madison. Are you guys familiar with
I've
11
heard
Madison?
of that. Yeah.
It's actually one of the largest 3 Michelin star restaurants in the world. Typically higher quality, less seats. They want consistency. They're going to have less seats. Most Michelin restaurants are like 40 seats and under because they just don't want to deal with like having to do of food like that.
Yeah.
11 has like a couple, like I think 150, 200, something like that. They have 70 people on the line. 70 people. Or it might be 50 or 70, something like that. Some ridiculous amount.
Yeah.
Of people that are cooking. But their experience is very much like catered to you. Like sometimes I think one of my friends went and his dad is like knows the community there pretty well. He went in and they were talking about F1 and they were having their meal and it was based off the menu, nothing too crazy. And it was like a 10-course menu or something like that, all vegetables. And the waiter overheard them talking about F1. And so for their dessert, they got a bunch of F1 inspired desserts and then got a F1 cookie of like a bunch of F1 cars, like as a gift to leave with in a little gift baggie.
Isn't that the place where they ask you about yourself and you tell them like your interests or whatever, and then they can, because I swear I heard about a Michelin star restaurant that will like go figure out your interests so they know that they can converse with you about certain topics.
I've actually never eaten at 11. I'm only talking about someone else's experience. I'm not 100% sure, but I mean, wouldn't be surprised if they did that. But the point is like each experience is going to be different depending on the restaurant you go to. You know, some places might have a rest area. Some places might just be a restaurant and the food is insane. You know, the French Laundry, you go and you eat, you leave. But they usually give you like gifts and stuff like that when you leave.
And how much do the employees make, do you know, at these?
Nothing.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, you know, I'm going to kind of get into the conversation of experience. Is you know what I mean? Back in the day when I was working, you know, as a young line cook, I would have taken pretty much any pay to work at any of these places. And that's how most people feel. But you'll find that there's not a ton of people that are able to do that because affordability, right? A lot of the people that are working at these places have one of 2 or 3 things. Either 1, they have good friends that they can sleep on their couch and stuff like that. 2, they have money saved up and they can pay rent. Or maybe they are paid well. It's getting better. There are places that pay enough to afford rent. But 3rd, the higher the restaurant, sometimes they'll pay much less than you could imagine. and most people can't afford rent. Like I wanted to work at this one restaurant that shan't be named. This was years and years and years ago. 3 Michelin star in San Francisco. And they actually gave me a job offer because one of my old chefs knew them, and he was like, oh, this guy's talented. Like, he likes your restaurant. You should consider him. And they gave me an offer, but they were like, well, first you need to stage. And staging is like a unpaid internship. You come in for like a day or two and show them what you got, and then you leave, and then they decide if they're going to hire you. Right? Yeah. They said that the stage is 2 months, 2 months, no pay, 0. They wanted me to work 4 days a week and stage 2 months in San Francisco as a line cook.
How is that legal? They just call it something different, it's like an internship?
I have no clue.
Okay.
I have no clue. They definitely do illegal shit in that world.
Okay.
It is getting better, and it's been getting cracked down on, I would say.
Okay.
So that's the good part. But yeah, so that gives you an example of kind of like what most of the people are going to be getting paid anywhere from 12 to maybe 17 an hour.
Wow.
But the servers make probably a lot, right? Because they're tips.
Yeah. Sometimes they share tips, but it's rare. If they're not sharing tips, then yeah, servers make bank. Servers can make 6 figures. Yeah. Pretty easily.
Yeah, we know a few servers here on the Strip who would easily make about $150, maybe as high as $200,000 a year, just working at a really high-end restaurant. And some of the tabs are insane.
Yep.
We went out to dinner last night. I'm not going to share where, but you know where. But the table across from us got a $5,300 bottle of sake. Just one bottle. $5,300.
That's insane.
Yeah, so you could imagine the tip on top of that, plus food, plus other drinks, plus everything else. Just 2 people.
Yeah, especially if it's like a large party. That's when it gets crazy in some of these restaurants. One of the restaurants I worked at, there was, I think it was like a 20 top that came in, so 20 seats, 20 people sitting in seats. And they ordered all of the most expensive shit and the most expensive bottles of like wine and champagne. Let me tell you something. Whatever you're paying for champagne and wine at these restaurants is like 500 to 600% of what it actually is. There was a bottle of one of the restaurants I worked, and I liked the champagne, but it's sold at the grocery store for, well, actually, I'll tell you what we sold it for first.
All right.
So the restaurant sold it for $75 a bottle, which is like not exorbitant. That's affordable for some people, but at the store, it's $12. $12 at the store. They're selling it for $75. So, but
is that why they charge the corkage fees? So if you bring your own in,
yes,
because you bring your own wine in
a lot of times, yeah,
and they'll charge corkage fees so that they
it's
can
usually
make
like
money
$30.
Yeah,
so it could be more than the cost it would take just to
is that
go and
per
buy the
bottle or is that like per table? So like if you bring in like 3 bottles,
I believe it's per bottle.
Yeah, it's
I
per
could
bottle.
Be wrong.
wow.
Yeah, so it's worth it if you bring in a really expensive bottle, like a $500 bottle. Then you'll save a lot of money.
Most restaurants are profitable because of alcohol.
That's why.
Most of them. I'm not saying that that's the only reason. I'm just saying that the reason why they pass over margins and get like at least a decent payout is alcohol. Because food is tough to make profitable. It's very hard. You have to balance your menu. There's like, how much is your food cost? What's your overhead, et cetera, et cetera? How long does it take to make some of these things? A lot of fine dining places are not profitable. Like there's a lot of Michelin-starred restaurants that are not profitable, but there's just somebody who has a lot of money that owns it.
Wow. But you know what? Before we go into that, I want to say a huge thank you to our sponsor, StreamYard. You know, in the beginning stages, when it comes to making content, one of the best ways to figure out what works is to create as much as possible. And reducing that time is essential so you have more time left over to figure out what works best. Well, thankfully, StreamYard is one of the best ways to produce high-quality content right from your browser.
StreamYard is a live streaming studio platform perfect for people looking to get into content creation without having to worry about all the editing, setup, and post-production that comes with it.
You could stream directly to Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, and several other platforms. They also make it easy to brand and customize your videos before you even go live. In addition to that, they allow you to multi-stream social media platforms so you can maximize your content's reach. Whether you want to start live streaming or just easily record new content, StreamYard makes it simple to get polished and professional content every single time.
So if you want to get started, but you don't want to waste countless hours on production, setup, and editing, we couldn't recommend StreamYard anymore.
So get started for free today by using the link down below in the description and start creating high-quality content as soon as you finish the podcast, of course. So again, the link is down below in the description. And now let's get back to the podcast.
Let's talk a little bit about your personal background and your experience with being a chef. Where did you first find interest in cooking? And a little bit about the timeline.
Yeah. You know, it's funny. I feel like a lot of people don't believe me, but I started cooking when I was like 4. like 4 or 5 probably, like legitimately cooking regularly. My mom brought me in. My mom cooks a lot. She's from the South. She, chicken fried steak, and she's making ribs, and she's making cream gravy and this and stuff. And, she's amazing. Really very, very, very talented cook. And so that interested me. It was the one place I could go and make a mess. There's one place I could go and make a mess and just kind of like, pick up a knife and chop it up. In what other scenario as a kid can you do that, right? Everywhere else, everybody tells you no, but the kitchen's the one place you could do that. So that was exciting to me. So I started doing that for a little bit. And my mom could tell I took interest in it. So she kept kind of like fueling the fire. She'd get me a little knife. She'd get me like a cutting board. And I think at around 10, I was like, this is definitely my thing, because I was good at it pretty much right out the gate. And it's funny. I feel like, especially now, actually, like 10-year-olds are very self-conscious about what they're going to be doing and what they're going to be. I don't know if you guys have like interviewed a 10-year-old, but
not yet.
But like been around kids though, where they're talking like, my fiance's cousins and stuff, and nieces and nephews, like the way that they talk, I'm like, they're really stressed out about their future. You're like 10, bro. I was as well. And so to me, I was like, I'm not good at a lot of other things. I'm really good at this. This is definitely my thing. And from then on, I had decided, I was like, I'm going to figure out how to make this into something that is good. So
By 10, you had that figured out.
yeah,
What was it about cooking that drew you to that?
I think it was the element of something that I knew that I was way better at adults. And I knew, the age gap, my mind kind of went there. I think that there's something here, and I want to be good at something. And I wasn't good at video games, thank God. And that was like the main draw, is that I enjoyed it so much, and there was never a time that I was bored, and I was good at it. And I knew that then. And I think I didn't want to waste time trying to look for something else. Like, oh, is there something better out there? My mind was like, I could do this forever and always be happy. Yeah. So why would I do anything else?
How did your parents foster that growth? Were they encouraging of you, like making your own lunch or cooking dinners?
That's a good question. They were extremely supportive. I mean, it kind of behooved them, right? Because I cooked them dinner like every night. But
they love that, yeah.
But I'll give you some examples as to how they nurtured it, though, because they definitely did, like more so than they had to. They spent a lot of money on like unnecessary expensive things, like kitchen knives and fancy equipment that I used like once and then threw in the garage. I was like, oh, cool, a weird little juicer thing, and then never used it again. On my 16th birthday, got my license and all that. And I asked, they're like, oh, what do you want? What do you want to get, for your 16th birthday? And I was like, I just want like a whole pig. And my mom was like, no, absolutely not. She was like cool with it in the sense of, I guess, but she really didn't want to deal with it. She's like, all right, let me see if I can find something else. My dad went ahead and got it. And then so she didn't know. And I'm like in the kitchen, and my mom walks, it was like 6 or 7 p.m. My mom was like out doing other stuff. She comes in, and I'm like midway, like with a bone saw, cutting the leg off this pig. It's dead, for the record, everybody.
Yeah.
Just so you know.
Where do you buy a pig? Like a full
farm
pig?
Yeah.
Is it
find a
gutted
farm
at all, or no? It's obviously
usually.
Okay.
Usually. It would be, you can't.
Imagine just plop it down like
from an animal butchery standpoint, you cannot show up with like an untaken care of pig, because like you have to kind of like get that stuff out of there. You don't want to let it sit.
Okay.
Yeah. So it was already like gutted and everything, and like the hair was like
not
torched
cooked.
off. No, it was
The hair was torched off?
yeah.
So it was like burnt and
It was
everything?
bald. It was like a giant naked mole rat.
Gutted.
Yeah, basically.
And that was your 16th birthday present.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
But
Why did you want a pig?
I
Why
wanted
that?
to
Yeah.
learn how to do whole animal butchery. I think at 16 I had done a lot of research by then. From 10 to 16 I was like doing exorbitant amounts of research. I bought every book I could possibly buy. I read every single one of them several times. I tried as many. I probably cooked like 2 or 3 different things out of a book every day from 10 to 16. I say every day, maybe there were a couple days where I didn't, but the point is it was a lot. And I realized, I was like, man, how are people, butchering these animals? Google it, whole animal butchery. Oh, cool. There's all this information. Well, how am I supposed to put this to use without a whole pig? That was basically it. Whole pig's expensive. It was like $1,000.
$1,000 for a pig.
Yeah. It was like a heritage breed hog.
Why do you need a heritage breed hog? Is that just like a
Better
flavor
quality
thing?
meat,
Yeah.
way better quality meat. And then also just like, I don't know, sustainability. And I don't know, if you're going to like break down a whole pig, do you really want like a quality pig, or do you want like the nice stuff, you know, something nice, high quality flavor, good intramuscular fat, and all that stuff?
How do you cook such a big pig? Is there like a special? I'm curious about that. You can't put that.
Graham is really into
put
this.
that in the oven. I'm just trying to visualize.
Yeah, you just slap that bitch in the oven and it's
Really?
done. Yeah,
Wait,
sayonara.
no, you can't.
I'm
Not
just
the whole
completely.
pig.
You
Yeah.
cannot,
don't
dude.
know.
This thing would take up this whole table. You cannot. Here, I'll tell you this. You can't pick this thing up by yourself unless you're really strong. It's like carrying a dead body. Not that I know what that's like.
Yeah.
For the record.
So how did you cut it? Did you put it on a table and like?
Yeah. So I had to take 2 huge. Actually, I took 4 huge, like, you know, those butcher block boards, the really big ones.
Yeah.
And like basically shingled them all together, put the pig on it, and then I have to kind of like break all the limbs down, take the legs, take the head, all the other things, and then you start breaking down the primal cuts of meat, which are like those really big pieces. So pork chop comes from a whole primal cut of meat. It's like an entire like where there's multiple chines of bones, and it's like this entire roast that you slice pork chops from.
Yeah.
Same thing with beef. That's basically it. So I broke it down into like different cuts, and my parents had to buy a chest freezer to put it all in there. So you can see how supportive they were. I mean, like most parents in that scenario would be like, no, absolutely not.
Yeah.
So they dealt with a lot for me to make that happen.
Was that hard for you at all to like actually be visually seeing? Like, because personally for me, I know if I had to like kill or like look at the food
Me too.
before it was actually just a steak on my plate, I know it sounds so terrible. I know a lot of people also like feel this way. I wouldn't be able to eat it.
I can
Totally.
do it.
I don't think so.
I totally get it.
I've
There-
seen the pig head.
Yeah,
And
it's
seeing the
like-
meat too. I can't do it because I see the pig.
Yeah.
It's funny. I think that makes complete sense. I think that's also like a very natural human reaction. I also felt that way, but it's sort of like you have a goal and you're going to grind to get to that goal. And so my mentality was like, man, this is a lot. When I first saw it, initially there was a little bit of a shock factor. I mean, it's an animal, but in my mind, I'm like, look, I really want to get good at this. Like I have to learn this stuff and I have to know how this works. How can I call myself like a professional that cares about what I do and not know where these things come from, how to care for them? And I will say one thing, it's built up the respect that I have for the food when I cook it. That's why I don't up when I'm cooking. Like my initial thought is this came from an animal had to die for this. And there's a whole sort of ethics behind being, a chef, so to speak. And I think giving respect to the ingredients is only going to be earned when you really see that and you understand that. So there's that aspect. But I was willing to deal with it to learn it. But I won't say that I loved it. It's not like I was there like, carving this pig up like with a smile on my face.
Over your face.
I was definitely, there were some parts where I was just like, man, this is a little bit much. Taking the head off was rough. It was tough for me the first time I did it. Yeah. After a while, you get desensitized and you don't really care. That I'll say. Like if you start butchering whole animals in a restaurant, which I never did, but there were a couple restaurants I worked for that did whole animal butchery, and you see it so often that when someone slings a pig over their shoulder, 2 guys sling a pig over their shoulder, then carry it in, it's not really a big deal. You see it every single day. But one of my first restaurants that I worked in, I walked in and they had a whole pig that they had roasted, the whole thing. And and one of the line cooks comes up to me and he had the head in his hand after it was roasted. And he's like, look, man, we just roasted this. And I was like, I literally just got it. It's a little too much for me right now, man. And then the jaw just kind of went like, and then fell off. And I was just like, oh my God. Oh my God. So yeah.
Yikes. All right.
There you go.
So
welcome to Horror Hour.
How long did it take you to eat the whole pig? I imagine that you just served this over many weeks.
Probably months.
Really?
Yeah, there was a lot. And I mean, we froze it all.
Yeah.
So some of it I made like bacon. I like cured the pork belly and then like smoked it and sliced it and made like actual like bacon. I tried to cure the legs. That didn't really work. We made one of the legs into a ham, like a giant like ham.
Sure.
And yeah, it took probably a few months, like 6 months.
Okay.
A lot.
And then what about throughout high school? Were you working part-time at restaurants or were you just doing all of this for fun recreationally?
It was all recreationally. I would cook for my parents and my friends, but it did get to a point where I wanted to work in restaurants and they don't like, it's a big problem in the industry with like underage labor, because like kids would come in and peel carrots like, oh, it's so fun. Can't do that anymore. So I had to wait until I was like 18 to work in restaurants. When I moved to Austin was when I started working. And then, yeah, that was pretty seamless transition of like, the one thing I was doing when I was a kid that I could get work doing is I was doing like food photography stuff, anything I could do to get my hands on to making money working in food. I would do like food photography for like small magazines or ebooks. I'd help people do recipe development. I'd write recipes for people, edit recipes. Sometimes I would come on to sets and like be a studio assistant to style food, anything I could do.
And what was your first job?
It was working in a restaurant.
Just like like a line cook or something?
Usually your first time you start as a prep cook. So you're like chopping loads of vegetables. When I say a lot, I mean like a lot, like 100 pounds of onions or like, there was 300 oranges, and then you take the oranges and you peel every single one of them with a knife, and then you remove each individual segment from the orange, but 300 of them though.
Yeah. This might seem like a silly question. Have you ever taken a cooking lesson or wanted to go to like a cooking college or like a school for this, like a culinary school?
So actually, I never went to school or college. Oh, well, let me rephrase that. I never went to college.
Yeah.
I didn't go to culinary school either. I mean, it gets to a point where I was just like, do I really need my parents to spend $100,000 for me to go to culinary school? But I also tried applying to a couple of them and they all denied me.
Why is that?
I don't know. I tried going to, there was one that I wanted, I guess I shouldn't name them, but I applied to some of like the most esteemed culinary schools that there are, because I was like, I'm good. Like I can go here. And then I applied to some other ones that were local, and I actually applied to a couple of colleges too. I did not want to go to either of them, but I did it anyway because my parents were like, oh, come on. They weren't pushing me too much, but they were like, let's do it. And all the colleges did not admit me, and none of the culinary schools admitted me. And I was just like, so where do I go? And my parents were like, oh, well, we'll just apply to some more. And then I was like, honestly, I'm good. And totally broke my mom's heart, because my mom hasn't had anyone, on her side that's really gotten the chance to do that. And she would have been the first, and so she wanted me to do it. And so it was kind of tough for a little bit for her, but she they didn't fight me on it, which was cool. I really appreciated that. And that also goes to show like how much support comes into play here with this. But yeah, I mean, didn't go to college or culinary school for that reason.
Wow. And so what was your experience then going from high school to then working full-time in the industry? Did that make it less fun for you, knowing that it's now a job?
No, I felt like I was getting paid to learn. It was awesome. Yeah. I mean, granted, I was getting paid like $9, $7 to $9 an hour. And I was like, why can't I pay rent? This is confusing. I work like 90 hours a week, but all right. I was a kid.
Yeah.
I think in between then I took like a little bit of time off. I went to Europe for like 2.5 months with all the money that I had saved up. And just went around and ate as much as I could, gather as much knowledge as I could. I went into a couple like restaurants and worked in the back of house for a day as a stage in France, actually. Super mean, very mean. They did not like that I didn't speak French, which I get. I get that. And then when I got back, I think actually, you know what? There's one piece of the story that I forgot to mention, which is I was doing a food blog at the time, just for fun. And it started doing pretty well, and then I randomly got a book deal from this really small publisher, and I was like, all right, okay. I was 17 at the time, and so I was really just doing that. It did all right. It was like, nobody really knows about it now. They know about it now, but back then nobody really knew about it. And then from there, after that, I pretty much spent all of my money when I moved to Austin, like all of it. I didn't have that much. I think I had like saved up 12 grand. Went to Europe. Spent half of that. I don't know how I managed to do that in 2 months. I have no idea. Lived off that.
Okay.
And then spent the rest of it in Austin, had $0. And I was like, time to get a job. And went to restaurants.
Wow.
And you somehow afforded rent on like what was it, like $8 an hour?
Yeah. So the first one was, I think it was around $8 or $9 an hour. I don't know. Well, the rent was actually really low. It was this pretty rinky dinky, like old house. And I think the rent was, man, I could be wrong, but I think it was like $750. It's pretty low. Especially for Austin. That's really low.
Yeah, now that would be what, like $1,800?
Oh, easy.
Yeah.
My God.
$2,000.
Austin is out of control. Yeah, it'd probably be like 12 or 1,500 now. But yeah, I just didn't spend money on anything else. I ate all the food that I needed to eat at the restaurant. And then when I got home, I might have like some cheap things that I could make, like pasta. And And then it got to a point where my girlfriend at the time, now fiance, would help me pay rent, which if you're wondering, that's why she's my fiance now.
Pass the test.
Yeah, pass the test. Yeah. I mean, I don't think it's required to pay your SO's rent, but she helped a bunch. So
that's cool. Yeah. Then where did the concept come for your YouTube channel?
So I'm trying to remember how that, so that basically when I was working, I'd gone through working through a few different restaurants, lots of fine dining. I got my experience. I was getting good, and I was getting like known in the community, and I was knowing a bunch of those chefs and restaurants. And I was kind of veering towards like a sous chef position at the current restaurant. Once you get a sous chef position, it's very hard to leave, because it's not like you can't quit, but it's just the attachment of like how much work it takes to get to that point. You want to like ride it out. And there's just a certain emotional attachment. I was afraid of that, because I was like, man, if I do this, I'm not going to be able to do some of the other things that I wanted, which those things were, I wanted to do like television or shows and visual entertainment, essentially, because I felt that I did not like the shows that were being put out. I thought they were terrible. I thought it wasn't doing food justice. I'm like, there's so much exciting stuff out there. And I felt that food entertainment was slowly losing the people. And that freaked me out, because that also was about as equally important to me as the cooking was. That was a passion that I grew over time. My dad's like in film he was in film for a number of years. And so that was something that I thought was really important. And so I wanted to contribute to that too. And I'm like, how am I supposed to do that working as a line cook or a turn-on at the time, going into a sous chef position? How am I supposed to do that working 80 to 90 hours a week? How am I supposed to have time for that? And I was like, well, I mean, I could start on YouTube. I could like make a couple videos and like edit them at night or in the morning instead, and call it a day. And maybe we'll see where that goes. And maybe I can use that to do other stuff. Mm-hmm. And for a year, I slept, I think 4 hours a night, every single night, in order to do that, because there was no other way I could find time. Yep. Because think about it, you go into the restaurant. If you're working mornings, you go in the restaurant, you get up at 5 and you shower, get ready. You get there at 6:30 or 7. You prep. You work until probably 5:30 or 6, and then you get home. It's nighttime, and then you eat and you rinse and repeat. But typically, you would stay after until like 7. Sometimes I would stay until 7 to like learn, right? But if you're on the line, then you come in instead at like, maybe they say noon or 1.
Yeah.
You need to come in at 10 if you want to set up your station on time. So really, you come in at 10 to 1 in the morning or 2 in the morning, 10 a.m. to 1 a.m.
Wow.
So then your window of time at 1 a.m., you get home by, let's say 2, after you close your station and everything like that. You get home at, say, 1:30 or 2. We'll say 1:30 for posterity. 1:30 in the morning, you get to bed at like 2. So 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. You get up at 7, 8, 9, 10. You have 2 hours to get to the restaurant. Get your knives, sharpen your knives, press your chef coat, go to the bathroom, work out. So I basically had anywhere between a 2 and 4 hour window to get anything done for the YouTube channel. And the only way to expand that for editing was, I was like, I'll just sleep less. It gives me 3 more hours a day. So they gave me 6 hours a day to do work. So that's kind of what the process was to get to that point. And yeah.
What were the first few videos that you decided to film?
It started out kind of wonky. You can go back and see some of my old videos in the apartment that I was at. And I just like found some shitty lights and turned it on. I think I was trying to give like chef techniques away. I was like, okay, this is how you like set up for cooking and, make your kitchen efficient, and you can do this and that. They were really boring and really slow and poorly edited. But my idea in my head was like, well, maybe I can give people the information, the secret stuff that nobody gives away. All these chefs are very secretive. They don't want to talk about the techniques in the restaurant industry. And I was like, well, I don't give a fuck. You're paying me $9 an hour. I'll say whatever I want. Yeah. And so that's where I started.
What were some of the secrets you were giving away?
Things that people wouldn't normally know because they're not in cookbooks, and you're not going to Google certain. Nowadays, you kind of can, because like more and more people are talking about it. But back in the day, you couldn't Google some of these techniques. People didn't even know they existed. Just little things like the finesse in the way that you operate. So for example, if I was to, I'm trying to think, there's just so many things. Okay. So like making a cheese foam, right? If you wanted to make a cheese foam, it's really, really basic. You need 2 ingredients, and you need a whipped cream canister, and that's it. But most people don't realize that. So if I were to show someone this technique where I'm like, yeah, you just take cheese, you grate it, you put it in a blender, you pour a boiling cream over it, you blend it until it's smooth, pour it into that whipped cream canister and fill it with 1 nitrogen cartridge, shake it, and you have like a gorgeous, voluminous, fine dining cheese foam. Something that you would see in a restaurant and be like, wow, this is amazing. Where I'm giving little techniques like that you can't just Google that and find it.
That's interesting. And how did you come up with the concept of but better? When you started recreating other menu items and doing it better or cheaper?
So a lot of my content comes from me being annoyed. I feel like the Popeyes chicken sandwich. Do you all remember that?
Yeah.
Remember when that came out?
Yes.
And everyone was freaking out. People were really freaking out. People were fighting each other.
Yes, the line down the block for Popeye's chicken.
I just wanna come on record to say that Popeyes where there was a fight. I was living there. It was 10 minutes away.
What happened?
Wait, the person that passed away?
No, no.
Yeah,
Because it got that bad. It was bad.
I like how we have to clarify what story
Which
we're
fight? There's more than one.
Gosh, it was there was like two or three fights, but no, it was like something had happened with like the manager. Their employees were like quitting or something because of all the chaoticness, and it was actually like a fight between like a manager and a customer that just started like beating the guy up, and so I was living like 5 minutes away, and I was like, gosh. Put the town on the map over here. So
wow.
If anything,
Thanks,
that makes
Popeyes.
you want to try it more, though.
Yeah.
Because you hear about that, and it's
seriously.
like, I want to try that. Is it that good?
See, that's so interesting to me. It's like, oh my God, somebody died over this?
What
Time
was
to
the
go
one
try
where
it.
there was a mini riot because they ran out and people started like going crazy?
I thought that was the Popeyes chicken sandwich.
Yeah, I think it was Popeyes.
That's insane. Over a chicken sandwich.
Yeah,
That's not right.
Riot.
I think it was 2017. That was the chicken sandwich craze.
Yes.
Everyone was doing
Because
chicken
everybody
sandwiches.
because KFC was like, wait, somebody's fighting for your chicken? I want someone to fight for my chicken. I don't know. But that's what annoyed me though. And then I heard about someone getting killed over this thing. And I was like, that's where you got to draw the line. Like if you're not drawing the line at fist fights in line, you're drawing the line in human life, because that is unbelievably ridiculous. And so I just was so annoyed and so upset at this. And my immediate response was like, you know what? I have to go try this, because if people are losing their minds over it, it better be fucking good. So I drive there, I pull up, and I was doing videos at the time.
Yeah.
I pull up, I order the sandwich, unbelievable line. It's an hour. So I'm like exhausted at this point. I get the sandwich and I take one bite, and my immediate response was, this is probably one of the worst chicken sandwiches I've ever eaten in my fucking life. The fact that I wasted my time here and someone died over this, I can't think of a bigger waste. And so I took that energy and I was like, I could make this way fucking better easily at home with minimal equipment. This is like basic ass shit. And so I was like, you know what? I'll make a video about it. And I kind of had that energy going into it too. That sort of like, I'm annoyed at this, the fact that this happened. And so I brought that into the video and I was like, we're making this better. You can do this at home. You, not just me, you. If you're watching this, I promise you can make this. If you follow my instructions, it will be better and you will have more knowledge and power and you're going to have fun. And you're not going to wait in line while you watch Jeffrey punch some dude in the face because his chicken sandwich didn't get there on time. And so I did it, and that video immediately went pretty crazy. There, like day one, there was an article about it.
Really?
Yeah, because it was at the height of the Popeyes thing.
Good timing.
So it immediately kind of swept up, and there were a ton of comments of people being like, "Man, Josh, you should make this into a series. Like, I just found you, blah blah blah. Like, this would be a lot of fun to watch." And so I was like, "Okay," and here we are, 70 or 80 episodes later.
Wow. Now, back when you made that video, were you doing YouTube full time, or was this just a side thing that you were working on still?
I think I had just become full time on it. I had just like, nobody was working for me at the time. I had just barely become full time.
What was that process like? How long did it take you to quit your job? And were you nervous about quitting your job at the time to do YouTube?
Yeah, it was hard. I cried when I quit my job, because you have like these attachments to these restaurants. It's not about what you get paid. Mm-hmm. It's about how much you care about what you're doing. Nobody works in a restaurant to make money. unless you want to build and, be an owner of a restaurant, that's a different concept. But as a line cook, prep cook, it's pure passion. The number of times I've seen people go in after work and you don't get to clock in to test stuff and work on dish ideas for free is staggering. So I had a big attachment to the restaurant. The process of quitting was like, it took me, I think, I was ready to quit for a while. It took me 3 months to actually pull the trigger and leave because I didn't want to like let my chefs down and like make them think ill of me, or I didn't want to lose the relationships I had, and I didn't want to get detached from restaurants. That was like a big thing for me, and I'm still very close with them. I'm also working on my first, and so it's like one of those things where, yeah, it was just a tough process. I was making enough. I knew it was time to leave when I was looking at my paycheck and I was looking at the YouTube check, and the YouTube check was probably 100x that.
Really?
Yeah.
Can you share how big the YouTube paycheck was back then?
Yeah. So I'm trying to remember what it was. 100x may not be inaccurate. Maybe more like 50x. But It was like, I was getting paid like around like $30,000 a month, and as a line cook, getting paid $11 an hour.
Yeah.
That's
I'm surprised
substantial.
you held out for that.
I
long.
know.
Like
How
that's
many months a day?
crazy to me. Like I would have seen 30,000 a month and then 11 an hour and be like, okay, easy decision right there.
It was scary because I was so used to like barely being able to pay rent for so long that seeing that kind of money, I saved every dollar. I was not fucking with that money at all. So it was tough to kind of like step away, but I will say that I knew I wanted to leave and I knew I could handle it. It was just, like I said, the emotional attachment. But imagine like line cooking and maybe you have a bad day, because this happened on several occasions. I have a bad day and I'm like, it's just a rough night, and I'm cooking, and maybe one of the chefs is getting on me. And by the way, all these guys are amazing, so I'm not shitting on them at all. Yeah. But maybe it gets heated in a kitchen sometimes, and they're like maybe shitting on me, and they're like, God damn, Josh, like you're really not on your game tonight. Like you fucked up 2 steaks, did this, you did this, and they're like, you want that holiday bonus, start working, and I'm like, you have no fucking idea. Like, you have no idea. I literally make your salary in 2 months. Like, not to be a dick, but it's like in my mind, that's what I was thinking.
What would the bonus have been? Like at the time, is it like $500, $1,000?
Oh, like $150 or $200 maybe.
Wow.
Jeez.
Yeah. Now, did they know you had the YouTube channel at the time or no?
They did.
Okay, but they didn't know how much you're making.
They had no idea. Yeah.
And what was your production schedule like at that point? How many videos were you posting a week?
1 to 2. Some weeks were 1. It was pretty sporadic. I didn't really have a very good posting schedule, but I was very consistent. If I posted 1, it was on Wednesdays. If I posted 2, it was on Sundays and Wednesdays.
Got it.
Every single time, no matter what. No
and
fail.
you did everything yourself, from filming to planning to...
Yep.
It's fantastic.
Yeah. That's why I said I slept 5 hours every night.
Yeah.
Because I literally would, sometimes I didn't sleep at all. I would film something in the morning, and I'd have like 3 hours before I needed to be at work. So I'd film something in the morning, or if I was working in the morning, vice versa, I would film it just before the sun went down, right? I'd run home and get it filmed. Or on a day off, I would film 2 videos, and then I would edit throughout the work days. So like if I had work in the at night, like night shift, then I would wake up at probably 5 a.m. or 4 a.m., go to the gym, immediately come back, edit for an hour, go to work, come back at around 1 in the morning, and then I would edit from 1 in the morning to 3 in the morning, and then go to bed, and then wake up at 4 or 5 sometimes.
Yeah. And then how did that schedule change when you went full time?
That was wild.
What was your first day like? And waking up and there's nothing to do but YouTube.
Yeah, I mean, I remember my immediate thought was like, I'm not going to go and like rest. I don't want to start this off with, I didn't want to start developing bad habits. So my immediate response was like, I'm working every single day. I'm working more than whatever the energy was that it took to work at a restaurant. I'm just going to do that 2x for this. So I immediately started working like way more. But I did get more sleep. So that was good. And
how was balancing a relationship at the same time as getting like 3 hours of sleep a night?
That was tough. She also was a teacher. Her name's Kate.
Yeah.
She was working as a teacher. So we never saw each other for a year.
For an entire year,
we lived together. Yeah. I mean, we like, so I would wake up, she would be asleep. I would come back, she would be asleep every day, except for the days off. you know, if there was a day off, I would see her and we would spend a lot of time together.
How long have you been dating her at that time?
2 years, I think. Yeah. So the year before that, we saw each other more. And
the year before that. Yeah.
That just sounds so crazy.
yeah,
Wow.
I used to drive. So she lived in San Marcos at the time going to college. So I would drive from Austin, which is about a 30 to 45 minute drive. I would sometimes go to work, immediately get off. She was in college at, you know, so her hours were pretty flex. So she would stay up. So I would leave the restaurant, you know, maybe midnight, drive 45 minutes straight from the restaurant, all my shit with my knives and shit, drive all the way to her in San Marcos, take a quick shower, and then we would hang out from, you know, like midnight or 12:30 in that case to like 2 or 3 in the morning. I'd spend the night there, and then I'd immediately get up at like 6 or 7. Well, no, that was a night shift. So I would get up closer to like 10, get ready, leave, and drive all the way back to Austin with all my knives and stuff.
You know what? That's absolutely crazy because I have a very similar story. When I first was dating my wife, she was going to school in Milwaukee and I was living in Illinois, which is like an hour and a half. I would wake up, again, 5:30 to get to the commute. And I probably wouldn't leave until midnight. I wouldn't get there till 1 in the morning and we would spend time. So I know exactly what you mean. And, and that's a tough situation to be in. Was she understanding of that, like right from the get-go, or because I know sometimes it's hard for your partner to visualize, like, okay, how long is this going to be? Or did she know, like, all right, you're going to grind it out for however, like, were you clear up front about like what your plan was, or how did she feel about that?
Not at all. Well, first off, let me rephrase that. She was extremely understanding. I was not clear at all. I never said anything about how long it was going to last, what it was going to look like. I just was expressing to her how much I liked her. And I think that she saw the effort because like I very rarely asked her to come to me. It was like, I'll go to you. You do your thing. Like you're in college. Like, let me come to you. I'll do that. So I think she saw the effort and kind of like used that as, I guess, collateral for the emotional attachment, right? Where it's like, okay, well, he's putting in at least this much effort in, so I know he cares. She's easy to please, you know, she's a laid back gal. She had to deal with a lot from me starting on because it's like, never see me. It's always late at night. I'm usually like fucking dead when I saw her. Yeah. Like dead. I mean, I can muster up, you know, we watch a little fun movie, we laugh, you know, you muster up the energy, but she always got me at 50% for probably 5 years.
Yeah. Did that ever worry you that would have a toll on the relationship?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it did, but you know what? I think it actually helped the relationship because it made us work through our issues more quickly because they were exacerbated by the exhaustion.
Yeah.
But we ended up, I feel like, building a really good foundation because of it. It started off poorly and then got better and better and better and better rather than worse. Whereas most relationships start off great and get worse and worse and worse and worse.
What's that like cheesy saying? If you can't tolerate me at my worst, you don't deserve me at my best.
Don't ever say that.
This guy.
Like, no,
I knew this was going to happen.
No,
I knew this was
look,
going to
I'm just saying it applies. It makes sense, you know?
It does.
It does make sense.
I agree with that. Yeah, no, I agree with that. I think that for better or worse, whatever the saying is, I agree with that. I also think at the end of the day, you have to be able to do your shit. Like if you're going to be in a relationship with somebody, if you have a desire in your life or there's something you want to do, you have to be able to do your shit. And if that person's not going to let you do it, I'm sorry, but no, you need to move on.
Yeah.
You know? And so I felt that way, but she also had zero ego in it. So I was just like, hell yeah, this is great.
Do you think distance is ever a viable reason to break up with someone? Or do you think like if you really love that person that you can make it work? So it wouldn't work anyways, basically, if you
Man, distance is really hard. I've done it before. I don't like it. I don't think I would want to put up with it, but if it was with my fiance now, I definitely would. But that's the thing though. It skews your ability to have foresight for the future of that relationship. Like now, obviously in hindsight, I'm like, oh my God, look at this amazing relationship we've developed. But that took years. So maybe if it was early on in the first year, how would I have known? Right. But I would say short end of the story is it's probably possible, but it's a lot harder.
What do you think, Graham?
I think everyone has different emotional needs, and if that's not something they're comfortable with, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But I think it would make it easier knowing there's an end date. Like, hey, if you could put up with like this 1 year, like just go through this 1 year or like a year and a half, however long it is, then you at least see the end of the tunnel. But just having this indefinite date in the future that could be any time, I think that'd be difficult.
I have a hot take here, but I think it's hard for somebody to see how compatible they are if you don't live together. And I think that's changing with like the current generation where a lot of people are moving in before they get married. But like, I want to know that person's like bad habits or everything before I like make that decision. So
what was the thing that was most surprising about Kelsey, Alex?
why are you putting me on?
She doesn't watch the ice.
She doesn't
coffee,
watch
so
it.
You're fine.
You're good.
You're
She's
fine.
not going to see this. She's definitely not going to see this.
God, this is gonna get clipped all over TikTok.
Of course.
Yeah. All right. Give me a second.
Just
here.
tag Kelsey in this.
Yeah, what's her at? If you can let everyone know.
Lovely
we're definitely not letting people
lovely?
know.
Something like that.
I don't know what it is.
Let's see. Oh, I think the most surprising. This is gonna show. You know what? This is a fitting podcast to disclose this, but the most shocking thing was that this girl really can't cook, like anything at all. Like,
no.
like not just because this is about food, but like when she was living in college, like I would like I'm not a cook myself. Like I can cook, but I wouldn't say I'm great. But I can make food, and I would be like, so like you're saying you can't cook, like how are you eating? She'd be like, well, like I go visit my mom like once a month, and she makes all these like home cooked meals, and she freezes them all, and like then she like unfreezes them as she goes, and I'm just like she did not know, like it was so bad. I'm sorry, Kelsey. It was so bad she didn't know how to make like scrambled eggs. And,
Oh, boy.
And so we had a bad case. And when I did a house tour video, I like made a joke about like not being able to cook, and I think her mom or whatever might have taken a little bit of offense to that. But I was like, I was like, no, it's not your fault. Like a lot of people nowadays, like, they can't cook, but that was the biggest shock. So so starting
That
the
last
relationship, I had to cook everything basically. And I cooked everything pretty much up until today. She's still she's getting better, but yeah, that was the biggest shock for me.
Wait, I'm a little lost on what you were talking about. The biggest shock was that she couldn't cook?
Yes, like even basic things. Yeah, it was because think about it. If you date somebody and you don't move in with them, you may not know that because when somebody says they don't know how to cook, you assume like, oh, like yeah, like
Funny, like,
a
oh
stick or
yeah,
something like that.
yeah, or like no, but like genuinely, like my wife did not know how to cook.
What's your how do you do dinner?
Well, I typically cook everything, but now she's getting better. So the other day what did she cook? Gosh, Kelsey, I'm so sorry. Kelsey, I'm sorry for exposing you right now. Like a typical, I work a lot. And so if I'm working, like a typical thing like she'll eat is like, she likes to take like a bag of like frozen corn from the freezer and like, she won't even heat it up. She'll just eat it.
So that's not cooking though.
Huh?
And I'm like,
Hell no.
Yeah, you thought you were going
No way.
somewhere.
No.
He's like,
Holy shit.
Or like she'll
Make
open
a
up
creme
or
or
like
something
she'll
like-
open up like a green bean can and she'll just like eat it out of the can.
No. No.
So anyway,
What's her name?
Kelsey.
Kelsey, you don't have to do this. I'm here for you.
Tell her
Call
what
me.
she can do with some frozen corn.
Yeah, give
Not
us that frozen
anything
corn
but
dish
that.
idea.
Literally anything.
What
but
do you
that.
recommend if someone doesn't know how to cook? How can they make themselves a nutritious meal for cheap? It's not microwaved.
What am I, God?
Yes.
Okay. Oh God. I mean, there's a
Where do
million
people
things.
start? They got to start somewhere.
Maybe start with scrambled eggs. That's the first concern I had when you said that. Maybe start there. The internet is the resource, I think, right? And I'm not even doing this to plug my own channel, but it's just kind of like everything's out there. Google your exact issue and find it. It's there. There's a way to do it. That being said, though, there's two tent poles that a lot of people struggle with cooking. First one is failure, and that's like number one. People are afraid to make something and fuck it up. They don't want to dedicate their time and money and fuck it up and it be bad. That makes sense. It's also a larger statement about society, but we'll talk about that later. Mm-hmm. And then the second issue is that they don't think that they're capable. Like they just think that they are incapable. That it's totally separate from the failure aspect. They just think that they're completely incapable, and then that's for somebody else to do. That's not for me. I don't like do that. And so those two things kind of have to get taken away, and then you just have to Google something and find something, and you'd be surprised because we're the only animal on planet Earth that cooks our food before we eat it. There's no other animal on Earth known in existence, as far as I know, that cooks their food before they eat it. It's built in our DNA. food is more nutritious and easy to assimilate nutrients when you cook it. So we're supposed to, which means that, yes, even your wife can cook. But I also understand if people don't want to cook. The last thing I will say is I don't think anyone needs to cook. If someone's like, I don't want to cook, cool. I don't have any quarrel or judgment on that whatsoever. So,
see, I'm worried about the time commitment of cooking because I see this as
Graham's
like
coming in with financial advice here.
I'm going to be scarfing
How many
this down
hours
in
does
5
it
minutes.
cost me to cook?
What's the opportunity cost of microwaving that meal? I could be making a video instead. I could be investing instead. I could be doing so many.
Let me Google
other
my
things.
net worth really quick. Hang on one second.
Divide that.
Yeah,
carry
divide
the 4.
that, carry the 4. Yeah, that'd be like going to Nobu 30 times. But you know, I get that. That makes sense.
But I see like I'm spending an hour cooking something and then 5 minutes eating it. Like the ratio is not there. Like an hour for 5 minutes.
Let me
Also,
just
Macy
give you.
cooks everything for you.
No.
No, let me give you an example
No,
of.
not
she
everything,
cooks.
yeah.
No, I have an
meals
example
a
right
week,
here
yeah.
of one of Graham's meals, and he actually made a video about it, which you
did-
guys can see. So, Josh, I want you to review this video or this meal, and I want you to tell me what Graham could have done better. Okay?
Oh my gosh.
And this is
You did
an
a video
old
on it?
video. If you guys want to
Yes.
look it up, it's called "How to Make 97-Cent Breakfast: My Morning Routine." So what he does is he takes eggs and he puts them in a pan, and then he
Is there any oil or butter in the pan before?
a little oil. I
Okay.
do a little like olive oil. Or
Okay.
just- I just don't want it to stick.
You adding any?
that's what it's for, yeah.
You adding any seasoning to the eggs, Graham, or no?
Nothing.
Salt?
Just nothing.
What?
No.
Why?
I don't like it.
No, Graham.
Really.
I know we just met. There's no way you do not
I
like salt and
swear.
pepper.
Yeah.
There's no
I like
fucking
the
way.
most plain stuff.
There's no. Do you have anything to say about this?
Is that not-
I need somebody.
I
need
never
somebody.
use salt
I'm
and pepper.
surprised. I'm just as surprised as you are. I thought you probably would have salted it.
You've never heard
seen
him
me-
s-
You've never seen me use salt and pepper.
I'm just saying I would have thought that.
Yeah, but you go out to restaurants.
Person
Yeah, you go out to restaurants and you like the food. So my guess is you think you don't like salt and pepper because it takes more time to go grab it and put it in your food. But if you like food from restaurants, like they season their food properly. So as a judge here,
I've eaten
you
that
like
meal
salt
for
and pepper.
years, and I never had an issue with it.
See, but it's not like having an issue. It's like, okay, this would make it taste.
okay, hold on. Let's move on here real quick. I'll finish this off real quick just so we could get a full review and finish off. So he takes the eggs, he puts it in the pan, no seasoning whatsoever. Then he's basically making like an omelet, and he's putting a pre-shredded sharp cheddar cheese from Kroger on there and some pre-sliced turkey breast from Kroger also, and then toasting a bagel and adding cream cheese onto the bagel. So what would you say to that meal? How could we make it better? We need to make 97-cent
Under
breakfast.
$1 for that meal.
Well,
It's
maybe
filling.
not with
I mean,
inflation now.
Yeah, with inflation, it's
It's like
egg
$40
prices.
now, right?
Yeah,
okay.
50.
That makes sense. Well, yeah. I mean, the meal itself, in essence, there's nothing wrong with. I mean, deli meat, I understand why you use that for the price point, so that makes sense. It could still be good. Maybe like, I don't know, I would like ham better because turkey tastes weird when it gets heated for some reason, unless it's in a sandwich. I think you just put salt and pepper. That's the one
That's
thing.
it.
That's it.
Just
A little bit of
Salt.
MSG, maybe.
If there's anything, I mean, maybe not in an omelet, but in some things, yes. If there's one thing that I think people make the biggest mistake, and the first thing I judge a restaurant on it takes me a fraction of a second to tell whether a restaurant's on their shit. And it is salt. It is salt levels. Most places, I would say salt is single-handedly one of the most powerful, influential elements to making great food. Because most places just don't know how to put enough. But I also think that, like, you know, in your case, some people are either sensitive to it or it's not something that they really think about and it doesn't really affect their experience. But I would say most people, though, their experience is severely affected with lack of salt.
But too much could completely ruin the meal.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, too much of anything, right? Like, you know, it's sort of like you want to balance the amount of salt in it. You want to push salt as far as it can physically go before reaching that salty level. So if you ever go to a restaurant and you're like, man, this is my favorite restaurant, everything they make is so good. Those places oftentimes are seasoning their food to the absolute max. Just before that line, one of the chefs I used to work for, he would test his sauces. He would make the sauce, season it, and it would take him like 15 minutes to season a sauce. He would like season it, stir, taste, season, stir, taste, like over and over and over. And the way he would to make sure it had enough salt is he would take about a teaspoon and then put a really tiny sprinkle of salt on it, right? And if that tiny sprinkle of salt took it overboard, it was there.
That That's really interesting.
That is.
Yeah. I imagine you have really good blood pressure
Me?
because of your lack of salt consumption.
It's low. I have low blood pressure.
Oh, then consume more salt then, right?
You think so?
Is that the move?
I don't know.
I am not a medical professional. Do not take any of my advice on that.
No, mine is consistently at the point where if it were any lower, it would be a concern.
What is that?
I've never heard of low blood pressure.
Neither have I.
This
I don't know
guy's
what it
never
is.
stressed out, doesn't eat
I'm
salt.
constantly stressed out. But my blood pressure doesn't go up. Like even when I did the boxing thing, they did the blood pressure and it was like slightly too low. And they're like, we need you to do jumping jacks. And I'm like, I am nervous on the inside. I'm like, okay. And I got it up. But consistently, it's just been low.
Wow.
So you've been having some problems getting it up.
Yeah. I'll tell you one thing. My blood pressure is always high whenever
That's
I'm on his
pretty good.
Twitter.
Yeah.
Every time I see his Twitter, he's like, the housing market is crashing. And I'm like, cool, that's awesome. I'm really glad that I bought 2 fucking houses. That's great.
Crashed
At
for the
height of the
50th
market.
time this year.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So tell us about you bought 2 houses?
Yes. So one in Austin and one in LA. 2 studios, basically, because we go to LA so frequently. And so my mentality, we are actually building a studio separately in Austin now. But the reason why we did the place in LA, which maybe we'll rent it out every once in a while to pay the mortgage, whatever. I'm flexible on it. But we go there so often, and it is so expensive to bring my team, rent out a space, shoot in it. And I like LA. I'm from LA. So, I want to spend a lot of time there. That was actually, I did the math and I was like, well, if I can find a house for this price and I build a kitchen in it, it would be less expensive, and I could rent it out to tenants and pay it when I'm not there, and rent it out on Airbnb and pay for the mortgage when I'm not there, and then when I'm there, just don't block those dates out. So we did that, and I got a place in LA, and we're not there very often, but in the sense of like our total shoots, but we're there often enough that it's utilized to the potential that I wanted it for.
Yeah. What's your team look like now?
So we've got 11 dedicated people,
No.
and then we have a bunch of like freelancers that we use, thumbnail editors. Have you guys seen this, by the way? Have you seen this like huge wave? I'll talk about it later.
No, let's talk about it now. I'm curious now.
This
What's
huge wave of like thumbnail artists.
Yes.
Yeah, on Twitter.
It's like
and
going
everything.
crazy because of Mr. Beast, obviously. King, legend. Makes sense. I get it. But we started working with some of them, and they're cool. So we use some thumbnail artists, and then my 11 dedicated people. So we have my director and who I now call my vice president. He's been with me since almost like day one. Like when I was making enough money to hire somebody, he was my first hire. His name is Vikram. He's incredible. He's extremely good. Work ethic, top tier.
What does he do?
So he does now pretty much everything with me. So like we ideate content together. He does editing still. I really need to get him off editing because it's just taking too much of his time. But like when you care about what you do, he has like a iron grip on some of the creative. And so he still wants to edit it despite us having several editors. But so he does directing on set. We'll work on building out run of shows for shoots. He will, like I said, we come with creative ideas. I bounce ideas off him. Sometimes we'll work on like new revenue sources together. He'll handle like brand deal stuff, like creative, like submitting creative stuff between brands and sponsorships so that we can like make that system efficient. Yeah. And then everything in between that you would imagine. The only thing he doesn't handle is like obviously like financials. Like I still do that, but yeah, he also functions as like a managing factor in the team. And then we have my lead editor, Maya. She's great, incredibly talented. Again, work ethic, top tier. So she basically oversees all edits and helps make sure that the editing schedule is like consistent every single time. She rules it with an iron fist. She's like, when's this coming? When's that coming? She's great. And then we have, our other editors, a few staff editors. We have some people who are part-time editing and part-time on-set shooting. So we'll have like, one guy, his name's Kendrick. He is on camera when we're shooting, but he's also editing when he's not on set. Then I have my executive assistant who basically handles like scheduling for myself and then other people in the team. And then we have our content coordinator who makes thumbnails. He works on content SEO with me and all sorts of other things. Website, we built out this really cool website that is super messed up with the recipes. I got to figure that out. But yeah, and that's pretty much, there's other people obviously, but it's like editors, coordinators, assistant, director, and some writers.
That's a huge team. I don't know why I thought it was just like you and maybe 2 people. That's how it feels.
Yeah, I mean, you know, we could go lighter. There's 2 other people I completely forgot about. Culinary as well. So I have a culinary producer. I call them culinary producer, and then a culinary assistant. So they both like measure ingredients out. If stuff needs to be pre-prepped, they pre-prep it the day before. I'll send them the recipe.
That's a great idea. Yeah.
So I'll send them the recipe and all this stuff, and I'm like, hey, you know, be sure to get these ingredients, and this is exactly how we need to prep this out. Make this sauce, make this soup, boil this down, do this, bring it all the way up to where it needs to be, so that when we get on set, it's a 3-hour shoot, not an 8-hour shoot. And they do all that stuff and help with cleanup.
Yeah, like I've seen it with some of the cooking channels where they put something in an oven and then there's an oven next to it. They're like, and then they just immediately take it out cooked.
Yeah, that's how you do it. Otherwise, it takes so long if you're doing everything. In French terms, it'd be à la minute, which means like everything to order, everything right away. Oh, cook the chicken. Here's the chicken. It's done. It's way better if it's pre-made. So we'll have like sauces that take 6 hours to boil down, right? So we're gonna do all that the day before, put it in a quart container, leave it in the fridge, so that when we start the shoot, we're boiling the sauce down, and then, you know, it's boiling on camera. We get the shot. Okay, cool. I go put it off to the side, and then I pull out the one that's already done. I'm like, looks like this.
Wow.
So, but we do that with those people. So they'll be pre-prepping that for me, and I'll go check on it, make sure that it's right and all that.
What's your schedule look like day to day?
Chaos.
Yeah.
Yeah. It sounds like it's really organized. Right now it's very chaotic, but I like working a lot. You know, even if we had enough employees for me to have more time for myself, I would not do that. You know, I like the process. I'm sure you guys as well. You know, we all work a lot here. It's doing the stuff that's fun. So my schedule is usually I get up at 4 or 5 every day, no matter what. Weekend, holiday, doesn't matter. I do not get up later than that unless a special occasion, like I stayed up way too late the night before or something else, right? Maybe a vacation, which I have taken 1 vacation in the last 10 years. So I get up at 4 or 5 in the morning, go to the gym, come back. Once I get back, I immediately am like on emails, or I'm working on writing recipes. I'm writing stuff for my next book. I'm writing stuff for some other concepts that I'm working on, restaurant related stuff that I'm working on. And then by about 9, this is non-filming days. Yeah. By about like 9, it's like back-to-back calls from 9 to 5 p.m. And then I'll try to like squeeze stuff in between that, like write a recipe in between calls. And then I'll test recipes at night if I can. I would say I test maybe 10% of our recipes before we shoot them. So I just like write the recipe and it usually works. And that's that. And then shooting days, same thing, but there's a shoot in the middle of the day that lasts about 6 hours.
So you take calls for like 8 hours?
Sometimes, yeah.
What do you have to talk about? That's so. That's so
I was kind of thinking the same thing. Like what's there to say?
You know, I just want to say this. I don't remember. I hate to mix the two, but it was either Alex Hormozy, I don't know if you're familiar with him, or Elon Musk. Maybe, I think it was Elon Musk. One of the two said like,
oh, the meetings.
It's like 95% of meetings just aren't needed.
Yeah.
And also if a meeting has more than like 3 people in it, like everyone that isn't talking or like listening or whatever or directly related to that meeting is just wasting their, it was Elon, is just wasting their time.
Yeah, it was Elon.
And it's really made me reevaluate. Like obviously like calls are important, but a lot of the times like a call can be solved just with like a simple text, or like a group call could just be like a group text. Like it's just a lot more efficient. You know?
Yeah. Well, it's funny you say that. We're actually working on grinding that down a little bit for that exact reason, because there are some calls that are inefficient that we have regularly, because I like to be, I'm a communicative guy. So I like to communicate with everyone as much as possible, but I agree with that. And there are calls we're taking off. That being said though, it's mostly because we condense a lot of my calls throughout the week on like just a couple of days, because all my other days I'm too busy to take calls, like, you know,
filming and stuff. Yeah.
Filming or recipe developing, or just, we're working on a lot of projects at once. So, you know, we're building the studio in Austin. So like I need to get on the phone with my contractor, right? I need to get on the phone with the guy that we're leasing the building with. I need to get on so like little things like that. I think it's a combination of working on so many projects and some calls being inefficient that we're working on grinding those down. And then the third thing is we squish it all onto like just Monday and Tuesday. And then Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, I almost never have calls.
Interesting.
Yeah.
How's your business broken down now in terms of the income? Is it ad revenue, sponsorships, your own products?
So it's broken down into a couple different sectors. Obviously, we have ad revenue from YouTube, and then we have like, all the other things like Snapchat and all the other social media sites that produce income. And then there's my cookbook. my second cookbook, my merchandising, and then we are working on some other stuff. But I really like to take my time with the product space.
Yeah.
You know, I really don't like the idea of being like, well, I can make $1 million right now. I gotta just come up with this project and white label it and call it a day. Like, quality is so important to me. I want people to buy something they love. So we're working on that. Product space, obviously brand sponsorships. And then sometimes I'll do like a little bit of like consulting work, but that's pretty infrequent. So I wouldn't even really calculate that in. And I'm probably forgetting some other things, but that's some of it.
Can you break it down like a pie? Like, for example, this is this certain percentage or whatever?
So there's ad rev is probably anywhere from 30 to 50%. Book is anywhere from 20 to 30%, probably closer to 45% for ad rev. And then everything else kind of breaks down pretty evenly, I would say. Yeah.
Have you ever thought about doing the Mr. Beast approach of doing like the Mr. Beast burger, but you could come up with your own concept and have a ghost kitchen do it for you?
So I've looked into ghost kitchens a bunch. Yeah. I knew about ghost kitchens before Mr. Beast probably ever even thought about it, because I was working in I knew about ghost kitchens when they were just beginning to like become a thing. Yeah. Who knows? Maybe Mr. Beast knew. I'm not like trying to say anything, but it is so hard to maintain good consistency of product in a ghost kitchen. So I would like to do one to get food to more people. That being said, from a professional's perspective, working in food, I'd rather have a brick and mortar, and I'd rather put my energy towards that for now and do a ghost kitchen later. We were approached by the same company that approached Mr. Beast at the same time he got approached. And they were like, we can open 100 locations for you in the next 6 months. And I was like, wow, that sounds fucking horrible. That's not good, because if you do that, there's going to be crazy inconsistency. You're going to have so many fucked up orders. And guess what? Mr. Beast had a lot of fucked up orders, and they had to go back and fix a lot of things. I remember talking to Reed about it, and I was like, man, I'm so sorry. Like, if I can help you guys, please let me know. They did it.
I felt so bad because I was looking on Twitter, and I think the first night that they came out with it, I placed an order. Yeah. And I was looking on Twitter because I was so curious. I wanted to make a whole video on this.
Yeah.
But it's already saturated. Yeah, yeah. Right? But yeah, I've seen some of the inconsistencies on that and just how they've had to deal with that. Thankfully, it seems like everyone was super understanding. Yeah. It's like, hey, you can't just do this and have every order perfect. Like, it's going to happen. So it seems like, and they made it right so quickly. They're like, if anything is wrong, we'll send you another one. We'll give you it free. We'll give you a gift card on top of that. Like,
I have to say, when it first came out, I placed an order for me and a bunch of friends, and it was like probably $80 worth of food or something, and I got half of it. Could not figure out a way to submit a claim to get a refund. Like, it, and there was problems with this because like Mr. Beast had put out a thing like, if this happened to you, like tweet out at me, and I was like,
yeah, I was about to say you just tweet out.
I was like, I'm not gonna tweet at him. So Mr. Beast, if you're watching this, like, I'm gonna put my Venmo right here. And
come
if you want to send me $40,
get over it, Alex.
Come on.
Listen, I'm a hardworking man. $40 is $40.
Here, I will say this. They did an extremely good job. I have so much respect for them and the way that they handled that.
I agree.
They did so good. I love them both. And Reed, I don't know where Reed came into play there, but Reed was very on top of it with him. So I was surprised to see how much they cared about the product, which you don't see very often. So they did a really good job turning that around. But just to refocus back onto if I did that.
Yeah.
That is, imagine like my whole brand is centered around my food being good. How the fuck would that go if that happened to me?
Oh, right. Wow, yeah.
That would fucking destroy me.
For Jimmy, he's not known as now he almost is with Feastables, but back then
that took time to build.
He's not known as the food guy.
But he's figured it out. Like the thing is, like he cares about quality. I know he does, but they figured out how to fix the pipeline, so they're good. But like, I would have been a guinea pig in that scenario, and like, I care so much about the experience of the person eating my food. I could never risk that. Could never, not even one meal. No. I mean, I used to work in restaurants where every single plate counted, every single plate. So imagine like, I'm just like, okay, let me open 100 places. Like, let's see what happens. Like, God bless, hope this works out, And yeah, I would have been in like shambles if that happened to me.
But you built a substantial business off the cookbook.
Yeah.
Those seem like crazy numbers.
Yeah, we didn't expect it to do as well as it did, which I was surprised about. Not to say that I didn't think it would do well. I'll give you an example of why. I So I told you I released a cookbook when I was 17, right? It didn't sell. I think it sold like 10,000 copies, which is like pretty cool for a kid, right? But I went to, you know, the San Francisco Ferry Building? Do you know it? You never been? How is that possible? How is it possible you guys don't know this place?
I don't know.
You guys have never heard of the San Francisco?
I've never been to San Francisco.
Have you heard of the San Francisco?
Never. Nope.
Have you been to San Francisco?
How-
Yeah, I
Anyone?
have.
You have?
I like
Whoever
San
is listening to this,
Francisco, yeah.
I know that there are people listening to this podcast that is like, wow, this just changed their opinion about
They're
you
just
guys.
like,
I'm just
unsubscribe.
No, I love that place. That's a great spot.
Oh yeah, and they have the
100%.
fisherman stuff.
Fisherman's
and
Wharf?
Yeah, they're wharfing it up over there.
Right.
So short of the story, it's a really big, beautiful building in San Francisco that has a bookstore in it that's really famous and a bunch of other like little shops to serve food. It's very big. It's like if you saw it, it's a very grandiose, like long building. And so I went there when I was a kid with my book to do a book tour at the time. This was when I was like 17 years old. And one person showed up to the book tour, and which was awesome. Like
Still feels good. I feel
it still
like
feels good, but I was also kind of bummed out where I was just like, I don't know why I expected more people and again, I was 17. So, you know, those kinds of things get to you, and it stuck with me. Like it stuck with me. Fast forward to me launching this book, you know, I was 25 when it came out. So I launched this book, and when I got to the Ferry Building, I was filled with fear because I was like, what if that all happens again? Like, I don't know if I can handle that right now after all the work that I put into this book. Like, I put a lot into this book. I don't know if I can handle walking up to this and only seeing like 2 or 3 people or even like 50 people. Like, not to say that I needed a lot of people there to make me feel good, but I was just like, it was like a defining moment of like, this is how it's going to go. Mm-hmm. And I didn't see anyone in the bookstore, and I was like, fuck, like there's nobody here. There's no way. And one of the ladies came out who was there when I came there the first time. She was like, it's nice to see you again. And I was like, oh yeah. And she's like, they're outside. And I walked outside, and there were 2,000 people wrapped around the building. No, 3,000 people. 3,000 people wrapped around the building. And I'd never seen a line like that before. Like literally the line went down the entire length of this football-sized building all the way around it. And I was like, holy shit. That's when I realized I think the book's doing good. And every time we did a book event, it was literally like 3,000 people showed up every single time. We did a book event in Chinatown in LA, and we released a special burger. And I was like, we'll do a book signing, come get a burger, it'll be fun. And the line was all wrapped around Chinatown. And I was like, oh, so people are liking the book. That's great.
Wow.
You know, then the news had come out. I remember when I was waiting to find out if we'd hit New York Times bestseller, and I was sitting at the computer waiting for the email, like refreshing. They're like, oh, we find out today. And I'm refreshing, and I'm like, you know what? Like I had two positions in my mind. I was like, if we don't get New York Times bestseller, that's totally cool. But the other side, I was like, I have something in mind that I want to go and get if we hit New York Times bestseller. Just any position. Just give me just one position. And then I got a phone call from my publisher, and they said that we got #1 New York Times bestseller in all genres.
Oh my god!
And I was like, for all genres, like outside of cookbooks, and they're like all genres. So we outsold every single book.
How did you do
For
that?
what time period?
For I think we were one of the like top selling books of the year, I think, in all genres.
How did you do that? Was that just the YouTube channel?
It was I'd love to say that there was a strategy. I mean, why would I launch a book with no strategy? But I mean, it wasn't an exorbitant, chock full of do this, then, and this and then. I mean, we promoted it on the channel, and we did some fun skits, and that was kind of it. We promoted it a lot on the YouTube channel, and I did like one TikTok on it. I tweeted it out a few times. I had it in a lot of videos, like where it was in the background, so some product placement stuff. But I mean, I just spoke very honestly about it, and I was like, look, this is a book that I want to release for a long time, blah, blah, blah. And it was just cool to see people show up. I think people were excited to see that it was like a professional's book instead of all these other, personalities, so to speak. A lot of people in food there's a lot of personalities in food that have not put in like the extraordinary amount of work that I have put in to a craft. And so I think it was really cool to see that people kind of return the favor a little bit, where they were like, it felt like the age-old concept of like, oh, is this real? Like, do people even care about this anymore? It was a really nice, reassuring moment to see that they do.
Wow. What's the process of writing a book? How do you do that?
Are you working on one, Graham?
No.
Yeah, you're not about that, huh?
No. I'd much rather make a video.
Yeah.
For me, I don't
That's fair.
read that many books. I'll listen to like audiobooks, but
I don't read a ton of books either.
I've not sat down there and read a book. And so I feel like, why would I do something that, I'm not going to sit down and read a book?
Once I put
At
out
some point, yes.
Once I put out my third book, it will be officially, I will have written more books than I've read all the way through.
Nice.
There you go.
Yeah, so it's not like I don't read, for the record. It's just I just don't read books all the way through. But so the process is pretty lengthy. They give you like a deadline, and it's sort of like a race to get to that point. For a cookbook, it's normally broken down in like, okay, how many recipes are there going to be? How many pages? That book has over 100 recipes and like 200 and something pages. And then you define what recipes are going to be there. You write them and everything. And then you figure out what the book is going to, prior to doing that, obviously figure out what the book is going to be about. What's the concept? And then you build everything out from there. So it starts at the top of the tree and then you build the rest of the tree out. It's not that bad if you really know what you're doing and you know what you're writing about, in my opinion. If you're struggling to write a book, probably you shouldn't be writing that book. It should be easy. I'm sure if I don't know, if someone came to you and offered you enough money and they were like, hey, do this book, maybe you do it, and they asked you to talk about something that you know the most about, you'd probably have a pretty easy time writing about it. It takes a long time and it's a bit of a grind, but it's all up here.
It's tough for me because I feel like, well, I just make a YouTube video.
Yeah.
Like, it would probably be with real estate investing of some sort, but I made so many videos on that.
That's fair.
And I feel like then the video just gets pushed out. The algorithm helps and people could watch it. They could, pause it, come back to it. They could listen to it in the car.
I've thought about, I would say it's two things. Think about it like you have this podcast, you have what you're doing on YouTube, and you have what you do on Instagram, et cetera, et cetera. And what's smart about that is, you're making content for people who want to consume it differently. And text is still a piece of content that people want to consume differently. Mm-hmm. And there's only a few categories that perform really well in literature, and that is food and financial, self-help, and maybe a couple of, fiction books that somehow blow up. Like Harry Potter is a great book, right? A great series, that blew up because of what it is. That would be like another format for you to put out. And like, if they gave you a better royalty, a lot of people say books don't pay. I didn't think that was the case until this. Granted, like it wasn't a great split for the first book, but it got better after that.
Oh, there's a publisher author split.
Yeah.
So like they basically do all of the work, like logistically, and you just have to write.
Well, I mean, I did more than write. I also was the creative and art director for the book. We hired a photographer, but I basically chose all the direction of the visuals for the photography. I did all the food styling. I did all the, I brought on some people to help me cook the food, because it was like, we filmed in 6 days. We took all the photos for the book.
Wow.
Over 100 recipes. We cooked in 6 days and photographed.
So you do all of the content inside the book, and then the publisher does everything aside from that. And then do they pitch you on the idea, or do you pitch them on the idea?
I'll never let somebody pitch me on an idea, and it better be really good. I don't like that kind of stuff.
But a publisher would approach you and say, hey, we want to publish a book for you. Do you have any ideas?
Yep.
You pitch them on that.
Yep.
And then they either agree or decline to it. And then okay.
Yeah, it depends on where you're at with them, right? Like, I think I have a really good relationship with my publisher, so I could go to them and be like, I want to do this book, and they'd probably just be like, okay, cool, and we would go and do it.
Sure.
But after that, it's pretty much like you said. You make all the content. They will put it all in a book and make it look nice, and they have editors that edit it for you, and they know how to do all the traditional things that would be done for the book. So distribution, printing has to be thought of, because that shit can get expensive. But like, when I was looking at sales and everything, I did the math and assuming that splits are good, but if I had self-published the book, I probably would have made about, granted, I would have to pay people, so it would be a little bit less than this after paying an editor and for distribution and everything, but the gross would be probably about $15 million on one book.
That's insane.
In the first year.
Now, in fairness though, do you think you would have done that, even hiring out with that book versus the publisher who already has those resources and that knowledge? Like, is that something proprietary to them that like,
it's not.
I feel like even if you hired it out, it might not be the same quality that they're able to do right off the bat.
If you don't know what you're doing,
yeah,
it could go horribly wrong. And I don't think we would have been able to do it, because distribution at the time, this was at the height of all of the, shortages of this, and we don't have these materials, and we don't have these materials, and you know what I'm talking about? Like height of back end of COVID, but when there was like nothing left, they managed to distribute and print this book well, nobody else could print their books. Like everyone was struggling printing books, and my publisher is the reason why we were able to put out so many books. I don't know. Imagine if we couldn't print books and we're getting all these orders. That would be horrible. I mean, and so honestly, I got to hand it to them. Like they were, because they're so big, they were like reaching to, we were printing the book in Canada, in the US, in overseas, and like printing it in multiple parts of the world and like distributing them all over the place in order to, they had to coordinate all that. I mean, I don't know that I would have been able to do that on my own.
How much do you think of that was just really good timing? Because issuing that book around COVID when everyone is at home, I feel like cooking would take a lot more priority for a lot of people because they're home, they have the time.
Partially, maybe. It may have been, this was actually more so on the tail end when people were already going back out and eating and things were getting a little more normalized. Definitely not 100%, but like families were getting together again. And it was much better than the height of COVID. Personally, I think it was good timing because more people were cooking at the time because people started cooking in COVID, and then for some people it stuck. But other than that, maybe a little bit of good timing. I honestly am a big believer in brand and being honest and being good with your intentions. And I really am. Like, I care so much about what we do. And I think I've made that evident to my, me being real in the sense of my craft, that people just saw it and they bought because they know that I care. And that's what I think. That's why I think it happened personally, just because I feel like I've built a really good relationship where I'm like, look, this is what it is. Like, I don't fuck around with this stuff.
Yeah. Do you want to open a restaurant?
Yeah. Multiple.
Where?
Everywhere. But it's a process. It's easier said than done. Some of these restaurants are really expensive to build. You can't just like, nowadays to build a restaurant, you want to build a nice restaurant. And I'm not saying it has to be overly gaudy, but the restaurant I want to build, easily $4 or $5 million.
That much?
Starting cost. Yep.
Wow. And does that, obviously that would include rent for a building.
It would not include rent. Rent would be anywhere, but rent can be really high.
So are we just talking about the build out alone for all the equipment, $4 to $5 million, plus you're probably looking at another, $1.5 million a year in just overhead, I'm guessing?
Yep. Rent can range anywhere from $20,000 a month to $75,000 a month in Austin, depending where you are. There's a buddy of mine works with a huge restaurant group, and they have a restaurant in Austin that's on South Congress, or no, I'm sorry, not South Congress, South Lamar, and their rent is $85,000 a month, and it's not a huge building.
Yeah,
to me that's exorbitant. That's like way too much.
Go for it.
I was gonna say it's not worth that much in my opinion.
What type of food would you make in the restaurant?
Depends on which restaurant I want to open. I have multiple concepts, sort of already built out with menus and everything, but I think that I want to do like a finer dining concept, like high fine dining, and then I think I have another concept that I can't really say, but it's sort of a midway point and very much like my style of cooking, like me incarnate, and something I think people would really, really like. And that's the one that I'm probably going to lead with first, and then just kind of build out from there. I like the concept of Beast Burger. I think Beast Burger is really cool. I think people love hamburgers. So maybe there's like a fast food concept as well.
Smash burger.
Yeah, like smash burgers are fun, but it's also an oversaturated market. There's so many burger places now. Mm-hmm. Everyone's doing a burger place. I love the dough bricks concept. That's cool. Mm-hmm. So, but I'll tell you right now that once my restaurant drops, good luck to everybody else that's starting their restaurant.
Really?
Yeah.
I would love to.
You know what would have been maybe a saucy videos, dough bricks, but better.
Yeah. Well, anytime someone drops a concept, my first thought is like, let's do a collab and we'll make it but better. But then we put that on your menu. It would do really well.
Oh yeah,
that
would do really well.
Awesome.
And then do that in waves. Yeah, it's a
and
whole
you would
thing.
do that with dough bricks?
Totally.
If anyone here is watching, that has a connection.
Yeah.
That would be a great idea.
Yeah. I think it would do really well. And it'd be a lot of fun for people too, because, you have your core menu and people know what they're going to get: pepperoni, this and that, and this and that. But this gives you an opportunity to try something new on your menu in two ways. A, you can stress test it. Do people like it or not? They'll probably like it. And B, you're providing diversity to your customer base. So they're going to come back and order again and again and again, but they know every once in a while they'll get something special. And then maybe down the line, you're like, this sold so well, I'm going to put this on the menu. And then maybe it becomes your new number one core menu item, which would be great.
Yeah. Now, for a restaurant, how often are you supposed to change out the menu or offer newer items?
Many restaurants don't change them like very often at all. Sometimes never. It depends on how far behind you are. You know, if the restaurant's really old school and you haven't updated your menu in like 50 years, you got to look at it two ways. Either you need to stay that way and be Mr. Authentic Traditional, or you need to honestly have changed your menu like 20 years ago. Change it to match the pace of the style. So maybe every 10, 15 years, but it's not like a total overhaul. It's like little things here and there.
You know what I would love to see you do? I would love to see like a more realistic version of like, I forgot the name of the show, but it's like that. I think Gordon Ramsay was on it, where they flip like a failing restaurant and they like change the menu and they do all this stuff. But maybe it's more like just the menu part, because I think you're really good with food, and I'm sure there's businesses out there that are struggling with the direction of their menu. But I think for like a foodie audience, that'd be cool. Really cool, and it would bring people to the restaurant.
I agree. Yeah. I think that would be fun to do. There's so many concepts that we could do. It's just my concern with that is the legal. There's a lot of legal stuff with that. You know, if something gets messed up and then their restaurant dive bombs, not good.
I got a quick question. Do you have to have like elevated taste buds to be a good chef? Because isn't it true that like some people are just born with the ability to notice certain flavors that other people wouldn't notice, or they're more sensitive to certain things?
I think it's possible, but I don't know that I necessarily have. I mean, I guess I do, but it's hard. I mean, I started when I was 5, so it's sort of like it's trained. You know, I've spent so much time. I can eat things that aren't that good, and my brain is in two pieces when I'm eating it, and let's say it's bad. One part of my brain is like, it's food, whatever. I'm just gonna eat this, and the other part of my brain is like, this is fucking shit. Whoever the fuck cooked this doesn't know what the fuck they're doing. I hate every second of this. You know, but it's like the professional and then the human being, kind of like clashing a little bit. So I don't know. I mean, I do think you can train your palate. I think anyone can train their palate. And I think you can be born with maybe a higher sensitivity to certain flavors. Like that's why certain people don't like things like fish or cheese, or, you know what I mean? So I could see that.
I got more questions, random ones. Okay. What do you think about In-N-Out from a foodie
perspective? Top tier.
Really?
Love In-N-Out. One of my favorite burger places. And I can tell you why. So let me just address the elephant in the room. Their fries are ass.
Okay. Yeah.
But you can order them well done, and they're a little better. I don't go for the fries. I go for the burger. First off, the price is completely unbeatable. Unbelievably unbeatable.
Have they raised their prices with inflation or no?
I don't know.
It's still like $2.75.
Not much, though. Yeah. I mean, they figured it out, food cost. You know, they figured that out big time. But it's more so the whole experience. You go to any other burger restaurant, it genuinely feels like they sat on the fucking burger before you ate it. I mean, every time it is so far away from what you really initially desired that it's just like, why the fuck did you even go here? But you go to, I'm sorry guys, I have a foul mouth. If it's not evident,
no, you're good.
I've just realized I'm the only one cussing in here. I don't know if that's like a no-no. I worked in the restaurant.
We want the guests to be themselves.
I worked in the restaurant industry my entire professional life. It's like totally screwed my vocabulary in that sense. That being said, so anyway, the burger. When you get a burger, it's just like beautiful every time. The presentation, it's like perfectly wrapped. The lettuce is poking out. I mean, stylistically, when I look at that, I eat with my eyes before I eat. So I see that and I'm like, that's great. I appreciate that. I feel good about eating this. They put effort in this. And then the flavor is so consistent. I mean, it's just always good. But I don't know. Maybe it's nostalgia.
So I'm going to raise a point of contention here. I actually, I think In-N-Out, sure, yes, it's the best fast food burger. Yes, 100%, especially value considered. But I do think that there can be some variance and inconsistency with not only the flavor, but also the texture. Sometimes I go and the buns are harder than other times. But I eat a ton of In-N-Out, so I have like a lot.
Oh, this guy has like data I don't even have. Yeah.
He's got a spreadsheet.
So it's really good, but sometimes
Monday the 27th.
Exactly. No, you'd be surprised.
Firmness.
You know? There are times where you go and you're just a little underwhelmed. You thought you knew what to expect, and
he's tracking like an inflation chart, but it's based off of In-N-Out burgers.
Yeah.
That's the graph.
That's exactly it. Yeah.
That'd be a fun tweet. Yeah, well, you know,
still is great. It's great.
Any restaurant has inconsistency unless it's like a 3 Michelin if they want to maintain their stars. But like most restaurants have inconsistency. It's just a matter of how often that's happening. I've actually never ran into it. I will say half the time I've eaten In-N-Out, I might not have been sober.
Yeah, fair. Sure.
At 2 a.m.
So
No.
another question: when someone says, "I want to thank the chef," do they ever pull you out of the kitchen? Did that ever happen to you where they had to thank you?
Most of the time, in the restaurants that I've worked at, the people are kind of afraid of you, low key. They're like afraid of disrespecting you, which is a really weird power complex that happens in restaurants. And I know if there are any line cooks or chefs watching this, they absolutely know what I'm talking about. Where there's a certain, you ever go into a nice restaurant and you're kind of like, okay, let me not act stupid.
Still work at one.
So do you know what I'm talking about then?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was it wasn't like a nice restaurant. It was a good steakhouse. It was a good
and there's like a certain respect people have. So a lot of the time they would thank us through the waiter or waitress.
Mm-hmm.
They would tell their waiter or waitress, "Oh my God, this was really good. Can you please tell whoever made this?" And you always like throw a little party whenever that happened. It was the best feeling ever. So like, I remember I'd be cooking and maybe it's really crazy. And then they'd go like, "Hey Josh, that A5 steak, they said they wanted to kiss you." And then the whole kitchen is just like, yeah. Everyone's like screaming.
Really?
It's like this huge, that's one of the beauties of working in a restaurant. That's why you get so attached. It's like a brotherhood, camaraderie. And everyone's like, yeah, like Josh is on fire tonight, or like whoever's doing it. And then they'll like, sometimes like the other stations will like make food for you and send it out and send it to your station instead of a table. And you'd like, get it like a plate as like a reward or something. So yeah.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
That's a reminder to thank the chef more.
Yeah.
Never
Yeah.
really do that.
Have you ever done that?
The way
I
that
don't think so.
The way that it uplifts the kitchen is unreal.
Really?
Even if the kitchen's in a bad spot, or even if the kitchen's in a good spot, it doesn't matter. If somebody takes the time to go to the kitchen and tells, so-and-so, "Hey, this was really good." If it's a healthy kitchen, and by healthy, I mean like good attitudes and not toxic, everyone's going to get so hype.
Really? How often is it, though, that someone complains or sends something back and it's like, this is BS, it's perfect?
I hate to say it, I haven't worked in a lot of restaurants that's happened at a ton, but it does happen. Most of the time, it's pretty low-key. Nothing really happens. Every once in a while, it's really bad, and they're like, they want something redone. But normally, like, honestly, if they send something back, the restaurants I've worked for were really smart. They always were like, "You don't like it? No worries." Even if they're being a dick, we'd just be like, "Cool. What would you like? That's free. You can either eat it or we'll toss it. What would you like? You want this? Cool. Done." And we just remake it. Call it a day. We just like extinguish the problem immediately.
Never got exploited. Like some guys like, "Oh, I could just go and complain every time I come here and get two for the next
Every time I come.
Well,
coming in the next day. And the next day is, "Oh, this steak sucks again."
we've definitely had some stuff like that before. We'll throw them out of the restaurant.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, we'll throw them out of the
And
restaurant.
what happens to all the food that gets uneaten? Because sometimes I see plates where it's
Oh
like,
my God.
like
Oh, it gets
half of
ravaged
thing.
by the people in the back.
Does it?
No.
Okay.
Whoa. What restaurant are you? Good God.
Dude, I was a busboy, so like if any food got sent back, you'd know I'm eating good.
Chowing down.
That's nasty.
I know.
Bro, what if someone has something?
Well, I like
What
to
if they
think that
don't?
I'm tuning my immune system. So
Yeah.
I got stronger.
Smart. Yeah.
Because of that.
Yeah.
I hate seeing wasted food. Like I see when someone gets up and they have half their plate, I'm looking at that thing. They could take that home.
The amount of
I could
waste.
take that home.
He has been at it was a sushi restaurant, right? And the guy next to you, he wasn't finishing his sushi. You went to this man at another table
did.
and asked him for the food.
No way.
Yeah.
Graham.
It was half a dare. It was
cannot-
many years ago. It
Oh,
was
it was
half
a
a
dare.
dare.
Half a dare.
What do you mean half
other
a dare?
half-
I joked and I'm like, he's not going to finish that because they paid already and like half the plate was just uneaten. It was sushi. And I'm like, I wonder if he's going to finish that. Like, it's going to get thrown out. And it was really good. And so a buddy was like, you should just ask him. Like, really? You think that's weird? He's like, nah, just ask. And I think he was on a date
Yeah, that's
too.
not
And
a
I'm like,
dare.
no, man, it's going to be weird. Are you going to finish that? And he looks down. It's like, no. It's like, can I have it? And he's like, sure.
Oh my
I
God.
just-
That guy must have fucking, I bet he still tells that story today. Yeah. I bet he does.
Yeah.
If,
I
hey, if
think
you're
it's
watching
on
this,
YouTube,
here
man.
he is. Maybe, you know what?
This is in
we
Santa
need the
Monica,
people to
so-
go and find this guy. Somebody needs to go and like, I don't know.
Yeah,
If you
You
know,
gotta go buy this guy's
you
sushi.
know
Yeah, it was
anyone
at-
with the
gotta
story.
It was at Saki House in Santa Monica. This must have been like 2016.
That's not
So
long.
like, it's not that long.
The people
ago,
will
but-
do their magic. You guys know
Yeah.
what to do. Find this man for
Yeah,
us,
this
please.
and he
sushi.
must have been on a first date.
You should take him
he
out
was
on
on
a date.
first date.
Probably. I don't know. It seemed like a first date. Like they gave first date vibes. I don't know.
Oh man, turns out it's like his wife of 50 years or something like that.
What if that started a fight? She's like, you shouldn't have gave him that food.
I wanted it? We could have taken that home.
Yeah, we could take that home. That's leftovers.
Maybe they're not together anymore because of that.
Yeah.
Maybe.
There's so many domino effects that could have happened in that moment.
You never know.
when food is sent back, I never ever wanted to eat it off the plate. So that's wilding to me.
Fine.
But that being said, it's usually the waste in restaurants is exorbitant. It's Graham, if you saw how much waste is in a restaurant, it's sickening. No. It's sickening. It's really bad. Some restaurants are good about it, but even the ones that try to be good at it, it is really bad.
Why?
To the point where it depends. I mean, in fine dining, this is something that's not talked about a lot. In fine dining, you want everything to be perfect. Vegetables don't come perfectly shaped. You need to cut them to be perfectly shaped. Meat doesn't come perfectly shaped. You need to cut it to be perfectly shaped, which means what happens to all the trim? When you're trimming it down to get a perfect little square on a piece of meat, what happens to all the little strips of meat that you just cut off, right? We try to reuse it. Doesn't always get reused. Sometimes it's not reusable.
It should have a junk plate. Like every fine dining, well, maybe not a fine dining restaurant, but like a
you have that
plate,
one table in the corner, the junk table.
Yeah, the junk table.
Well,
you go there, you get a discounted meal. It's all the garbage.
All the trim.
Food.
It's funny. It's a funny idea. It wouldn't be a bad. What I would do, I'm giving this shit away for free. This is what I will be doing. So for to-go orders, you have a to-go order menu that's totally separate. So you have some of your menu items, but it's a slightly different menu just for to-go orders, right? You had a couple new items on there that you can't get in-house, and then you use the trim to make some of those things. So let's say you have a short rib dish, right? And you're cutting the short rib all nice, and it's like sous vide for several hours, falls apart, right? You take all that short rib trim, you shred it up, and then you press it into a pan, so it's like a flat layer. You weigh it down, you cut it into little squares or rod or whatever shape you want. You can pan sear it. It's like a crispy little like shredded beefcake. It's nice. Make that a to-go menu item. Now you've used a trim. You didn't throw it away, and you made money off of it. You made a better margin on your overall food cost, and you provided value with a new item for to-go orders.
The expectation is a lot lower with to-go food.
It's lower, but also you can make something nice out of it if you're creative. You can make anything out of anything if you're creative. So I think trim can be used, but most restaurants don't use it. So then when you start to add that up, think about like, let's say, a trash can, right? The big restaurant trash cans. You know which one I'm talking about? The ones that are fucking horrible to fill with the bag. Yeah. Let's say 6 of those get rotated maybe 3 to 4 times in a night, filled with some garbage, but a lot of those items like trim and just stuff that goes bad and vegetables and stuff that falls in the ground when sauce gets spilled, which happens all the time. I mean, that every day. Almost, like maybe, I don't know, 300 days out of the year, even more, 350 days out of the year for one restaurant.
Wow.
For one restaurant.
Yeah,
so
tons of trash.
How would you take these experiences for your own restaurant?
I mean, sustainability, being ethical, paying people really well. It's hard to address them all, right? If it was easy to address, then all restaurants would be doing it. It is hard to do. So, I mean, I kind of want to go in with that kind of energy of like trying to hit all those points.
Let's talk about real quick, paying people well. What do you think about the whole tip culture in America? Do you think that we should just pay servers X amount more and then mark up prices X amount more because it, like a certain level tip should be expected to be able to pay them a certain wage? Or do you think that, no, they're a service-based industry, like they can make more money by providing excellent service? What's your take on that? And this doesn't mean you would do it, but what model do you think you would do in your restaurant?
It's really hard. I don't know what model I'm going to do, so I can't say what that is because there's so many decisions that have to go into it. It's tough, right? Because I mean, it makes sense why tips exist. But I think it sucks that only waiters and waitresses get the tips. What about the people that are cooking the food? Normally they don't. So it's tough when you're like, let's say, a lead line cook and you've been working at that restaurant for 3.5 years and you get paid, let's say $13 or $14 an hour. And meanwhile, a waiter or waitress is making $100,000 a year and you're just sitting there like you don't even care about what you're doing, but I'm back here and I've dedicated my entire life to this and I'm really good at it. And I make stuff that people love that takes so much time to create, and come up with. And some dishes take months to come up with. So I would try to make it in a way that it financially behooves everyone as much as possible. But I really don't know what it's going to look like until I start working on the restaurant. But I can at least say that that's something that's at top of mind for me, for sure. For sure.
Yeah, I know with Sugarfish, they do the no tipping It's included. I don't even know if it's a set amount that gets added on. I think it's just built into the menu, and then you just pay and you're done. But I've also seen a lot about tipping fatigue, where I even went to like some random like supermarket sort of place. It was like one of those little convenience stores, and just checked out. Yeah, and they turned around.
The turn.
And there's a
Just gonna
tip.
press a few buttons right here.
Just press a few buttons right
But
here.
this was something where it's like just scan a few items and then turn it around. It wasn't like a service or anything. And I look at that thinking like, I don't want to be that guy who's like no tip. So I put something, but then I'm like, is 10% insulting? But then again, he just turns it around. Like, but that's everywhere now, and I feel like it's turning people off. I heard, I think it was Valuetainment was mentioning that people are now tipping less because of that feature, just overall.
I could see that.
Yeah.
It's
I got oil change and they asked for a tip. I got an oil change. I swear to God, I got
it's out of hand.
Oh wait, no, it was a smog test. It wasn't.
Like, how was your service?
It was a smog
20%.
test.
20%. Great.
No, but the thing is, it was a cheap smog test. Like I think it was like $20. And then when I checked out, they had the tip feature, and I always, whenever they flip the thing around, I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna tip, and I always click the middle one, whatever it is. So my finger, a default, went to the middle. I'm like, stupid. I'm tipping for a smog test, but sure, I'll click the middle one. And I look, and as my finger is pressing, it's like 72%.
What?
I swear to God.
Can they set their own?
Yes.
So like, you need to follow this guy around and make sure he
It was
doesn't
like-
spend money like that.
It was like 52. I think it was like 26, 52, and then like 70.
26 was like the bottom.
But the thing is, it was such a cheap oil change that I think they like expect people to tip a bunch, because it wasn't like the owner was the one that was like, that would receive
Oil
the
change
tip
or smog
money.
test?
Or sorry, smog test. Smog test, yes. The owner of the smog place like was checking me out, so the tip would go to him. So I'm basically just paying more for the smog test.
I wonder if
So-
there's got to be like a tax thing going on there. Like maybe tips are done differently, or maybe it's what is it done with Stripe? I believe it.
I have no clue.
Maybe they process. They get probably a fee too on that tip, so they're
Possibly.
making more money the more you tip.
was
Because
just-
imagine if every one of your transactions now pays on average of 10% more.
Yeah.
10% more revenue just for turning that
Yeah.
thing around.
Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah.
That's whack. I always think it's funny whenever I go to a coffee shop and then I'm like, you know what? Actually, I'm just gonna get like a bottle of juice and a water and like maybe one of the prepackaged snacks. And then I see the tip thing and I'm like, do I tip? Because I just grabbed this out of the refrigerator and then just bought it.
You know what? I wouldn't be bothered as much by it if it weren't anonymous, but I know like they see it and they turn around, and I'm always like just expecting.
No, that's exactly it. But
I'm
the thing
always
is, if they
expecting, like, I don't
recognize you
wanna-
too,
Yeah, I
then
don't wanna
that's
be
like,
that guy.
that's another thing, because you're known as like, the millionaire guy. You know?
Yeah, I don't want to
And
be like
when I
gotta.
checked out at the smog thing, I pushed. It was like 52%. The guy recognized me, so it ended up
Really?
working in my favor. Yeah.
Oh wow.
Gave me a trinket. Yeah.
My fiance and I now like sometimes, I don't know if we like watch a movie or something. And I'll be like, oh, come on, let's go watch, TV show or something for like an hour. And then we'll watch something. And then right afterwards, she'll pull out the iPad or something and be like, and then like look away.
And look away. Yeah.
Yeah.
Kind of like.
Yeah, just, I have a few
But it
options
was
for
Yeah,
you to.
rate your
Yeah.
experience.
Yeah.
I always wonder, when is it gonna slow down? Like, what other, I don't know, businesses are they gonna extend that whole tipping thing to?
Everything.
I mean, a smog test.
It's
is
even
pretty-
on YouTube now. Have you seen the tip feature on YouTube?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
Yeah, you can
YouTube
turn
has
it
a tip.
on. I recommend turning it on in your channel. Every now and then, people will send you a tip, and I get a notification on my phone that like so and so's tip, and you could tip anything from like $1 to I don't know, a few hundred. But when I see that little tip feature, I'm like, usually it's with a comment, and I'll respond back. But yeah,
I just thought of the next level business idea.
What?
So when I invoice Graham, I'm just gonna do it in person, and I'm gonna do the same fee. And you know what? And he knows me, so I'm gonna judge him based on, and I'm gonna make
That's
the
good.
middle one like 52%.
Yeah.
yeah,
and-
it's gonna be on. It's I
And turn the
guarantee it
camera,
too.
turn the camera on the screen too, so you
Yeah.
can see his reaction.
Yeah, it's gonna be on paychecks too. I guarantee. Like
No
they'll
way,
find
get
a
outta
way
here.
to give that to employers.
Isn't that
or
a
if they do
bonus?
great. Is
that not a bonus?
A bonus seems too formal, but a tip seems like, hey, you did a good job this week. Let me.
That's a bonus. That's a bonus.
I think when I think bonus, I think of a performance bonus, or I think end of year bonus, or like something like that. But I think just on, if let's say you're paid every other week, you wouldn't get a bonus every other week. It's just, I don't know. I
okay.
could see this extending through.
It's like a relaxed bonus, basically.
Sure, yeah,
crazy.
an informal bonus. But a bonus, I feel like, is something you would expect or work towards. A bonus.
Yeah. I wouldn't be surprised, honestly, at this point.
Yeah.
You know, but I mean, businesses are more and more every year. Businesses are kind of getting more, I feel like, picked apart in a way, which for the good and maybe not for the good at the same time. I don't know. I don't know if you have an opinion on that. I feel like with Twitter being what it is, I just feel like businesses are kind of being pushed more to be more ethical and better in many good ways. But then there's other elements where I'm like, why is anyone even talking about this? Just like, go fucking get a job. Go, you know what I mean? Or I don't know.
Give me an example. I don't know.
I don't know.
I've seen some of the Drew Gooden. Was it Drew Gooden who was talking about the Twitter wars between companies?
Oh, I never saw that.
Yeah, basically companies like Taco Bell were getting in arguments with like Del Taco over like this stuff on Twitter. I think it's hilarious.
What?
Or like
I
Home,
have to
Home
see this.
Depot will be.
I think that's what he
like,
was talking about.
What are you thinking?
What am I thinking of?
Yeah.
What
are you
I
talking
thought you were
about?
talking about like companies trying to. I mean, how do I put this?
No,
in like a-
I was thinking broad stroke from like from like employee to company rather than a company to
This
company.
definitely we're talking about different things. Yeah.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. So, well, because what were we originally talking about that I leaned into this?
Tipping.
Tipping.
Bonus structures.
Bonus structure. Yeah, so like you're talking about bonus structure, tipping, and all these different things. I feel like in general, from a society standpoint, because of like Twitter, there's a lot of conversation around like trying to be more ethical and being better for, you know, the people,
Yes.
and being less geared towards, you know, these mass monopolies and how do we make people's lives better, which I think is good and important. It's just like, but there's sometimes you see a tweet where you're just like, I don't know about that. Like that seems like it's not a good addition to the club. And so when you start talking about like tipping here, tipping there, it's like, at what point do we draw the line? You know what I mean? Is it going to be drawn at businesses
CVS.
tipping? CVS? Yeah. Yeah. Thank you so much for my ibuprofen.
The receipt's going to be that long.
yeah.
Yeah.
Somehow they'll find a way to make
Yeah.
it longer.
I don't know. I don't think there's ever going to be a line that's drawn. I think it's constantly going to be pushed and moved around, and it's just going to be whatever the general sentiment is at the time.
I think they're getting to the breaking point because people are finally starting to talk about the
That's
computer
true, the
screen
tipping
flip.
thing. Now
I
it's
think
becoming a
starting to
joke,
happen.
yeah.
Good point.
Yeah, and I think that there will be an uprising, a tipping revolution. So
You mean more tipping or
I think people are going to be like,
no more tipping?
like tipping where tipping is reasonable.
Yeah.
The thing is, like, if I check out it doesn't happen at Starbucks, but some like, you know, I get an acai bowl.
Starbucks
and
now does tipping.
They do?
Yeah.
Okay, I use
At
the
mine.
app pay, so I guess it doesn't.
Smart. That's how you get around. That's how you get
now.
around.
You
it.
got to bring cash everywhere. Just paying
now,
cash.
yeah.
Yeah, but no. I don't know. I think that there will be an uprising, and people will be like, okay, I'm not going to do this anymore.
Yeah.
At least where it's you know, not necessarily like people aren't performing a long service for you.
But you
I
know
think
what?
it's just
Everywhere
weird.
you go, people provide a service. Like imagine going to
Yeah,
your
a
doctor's
service.
office and you have a tip thing.
Oh
there.
my god!
It's just- it's
If
everything
a
is
doctor
a
asked me
service.
for a tip, I would lose my mind.
Just perform the surgery. How happy were you with your service?
Yeah.
Here you go.
But they
No,
asked for
my
the
God.
tip beforehand.
Yeah, doc, you make $500,000 a year. I'm not tipping you. Sorry.
It's just weird how like an acai bowl could be a 25% tip, and that's like the middle button, right? And then you go to a restaurant, and the person's literally serving you, pouring
That's
you water,
true.
doing all this stuff, and the difference in service is just like crazy.
Yep.
But although yeah, sure, the price of the acai bowl is smaller, so the actual monetary gain from
But
the
the
person that gets the
percentage,
tip, but it's the same percentage.
Yeah.
Which for me
Effort.
doesn't really make sense. It's effort and skill.
Effort and time.
Yeah.
And time. Like a waiter or waitress is serving you for an hour at least.
Mm-hmm.
This is some, you know, I here's the thing. I don't want to say anything that would make it feel like a service, somebody working in service doesn't deserve to make more money. I think they need more money. I think it's good. I think tipping is good, and I want them to get tipped. But it's like, it's not really being measured appropriately is what I think, or at least accurately. You
Why
know,
not like 5, 10, 15, 12 or something like that?
But then
instead of,
again, the
like-
price is lower though. That's the other thing.
But the service is lower.
That's true. But the ultimate tip is also going to be lower every time. If you go to, well, I guess maybe not with a coffee shop.
No, because the
you're dropping like
turnover's so
20,
fast.
20
Yeah, you
bucks. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know.
I feel like you could probably generate potentially more in a coffee shop because there's a line. It's just like boom, 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 boom.
I think what would make sense is if the tips were pooled and they went to everybody,
Mm-hmm.
then it might feel better. But I feel like the tips with restaurants that are the biggest problem is that they go to one person.
They didn't at your restaurants. They didn't tip out the bussers
thought
and the
they
hostesses and whatnot.
Did I always
At my
assumed that
restaurant,
it was
they actually tip the
around.
kitchen.
No.
So at mine, the chefs would get tipped, as well as actually, they were the only people that worked in the restaurant that got paid higher than minimum wage. The chefs at my restaurant.
Not the ones that I worked at.
Interesting.
Yeah, there was no tipping for that. As far as I remember, I don't ever remember anything tipped. But there are more places doing it. There are new restaurants that are actually having chefs be waiters at the same time. They would cook their food, and then they would run food, and then they would get tipped out. So they'd get their salary or hourly, and then they would get tipped out as well as waiters.
That's got to be so stressful.
If you're good.
Balancing both? Okay.
Well, usually it's with the way that you systematize the line and everything. Like you basically switch off. I think I've never worked in a restaurant like that, but I've heard about it. So I'm not sure how the full system works, but it's cool.
Yeah,
make more money.
Yeah. So I just have two things to say here before we wrap up the episode. The first, I just want to thank Lexar, my official card sponsor.
What happened to the card in your
Graham,
camera?
you took the card out of my camera.
I did?
Yes. Why do you think? Why is it missing? Because you're the only person who takes cards out of cameras around here.
No, Jack did.
Don't you dare try to
When
defer
we
blame on
filmed
me. I did not
with my
touch the
fam.
card in that camera.
My fam.
I had my
So
own card.
anyway,
That was
somebody took my Lexar card. I'm gonna be asking Lexar if they would send me another one. But
I'll take another one.
I want one too.
You want
sorry,
a Lexar card?
Lexar?
Sorry, Lexar. You want a Lexar card, Josh?
I would sure.
Oh, okay, sure. So anyway, thank you, Lexar. But the next thing that I want to mention is, Josh, actually, during this podcast, I actually thought of the perfect Christmas gift for my wife. So I ordered your cookbook. And it's coming today. But if she asks, you gave it to me on this podcast and it was a gift because I'm not trying to send any mixed messages. Okay. So I just need you to back me up on that. Okay.
Alex,
Done.
it would have been amazing. Hey, would you have been able to sign it?
Yes.
Oh my
Sorry
gosh.
about that.
Why don't you do this? You can keep that book, and then I'll send all you guys books.
Oh my gosh, that would
wow.
be great.
Done.
That would be cool.
That would be amazing.
Yeah. Be happy.
Thank
to do
you.
that.
Thank you
of
so
course.
much.
I also
Yeah.
have some bankroll coffee for you too. Yeah, we'll link to your info in the description along with your cookbook. I'm excited to get that.
Yeah, it'll be fun. You guys will get. I'll send a little couple things for you guys to try. Send you some salt. It'll be good.
All right. You know what? I could get Nick DiGiovanni's salt.
Oh no! Don't
no.
do that.
What's that? No, you got your own salt.
Right? Yeah.
Well, now I have to make my own salt for you.
gotta
Come
make
on,
your own
man.
salt.
Come
Yeah.
on. Nick's a good guy. He's a sweet guy. So
What do you think of him?
he's a good guy.
Yeah,
sweetie.
What about
He's
Gordon Ramsay?
is he a good chef?
Gordon Ramsay? Well, I mean, I don't know Nick's background to be honest. I don't know. I mean,
He was
like
Master Chef. He was one of the finalists.
I know that.
Yes.
Yeah. I don't know what restaurants he worked at though. But I know that I think he's cooked in food before. But I met him once, and we had a really good time.
Yeah.
We like chatted for a little bit.
You should be doing a collab with him. I think that would blow up the internet.
Yeah.
See, imagine you two going off against Gordon Ramsay, and he's the one who like taste tests the food.
Yeah. That'd be fun.
No, you got to include all the guys. You got to have Guga. You got to have Babish.
Yeah.
All those guys.
Yeah.
All competing for the
Just
title.
like the Marvel universe.
That would be amazing.
Matt Stoney eating it.
Dude.
That would be insane.
Matt Stoney passes away on this one. Amazing. Yeah.
Oh.
Well, thank you guys for having me on the podcast.
Thank you.
Ton
Really
of fun.
appreciate it. Thank you guys so much. Make sure to get your free
And
stock down
until
below in the
next
description.
time.
Public.com/Graham.
Wow.
Their sponsor.
Usually
Thank
speak
you.
over each other?
Yes.
All the time.
Yeah.
Guys, follow me on
It's
Instagram
kind of a
real quick.
joke. Like,
Thank you
at
so
the
much
end
for
of the
watching.
podcast
Yeah.
episode, when people are shouting out stuff, we always interrupt the other person shouting out.